We're waiting on Council Pelletier, but we're going to get started. Let me just cue this up. February 24th, 2010, public hearing of the City Council Committee of the Whole. A public hearing in the City Council of the Committee of the Whole was held at the Council Chambers, 93 Washington Street on Wednesday, February 24th, 2010 at 6:30 p.m. for the purpose of discussing the following. The city accepts General Laws 64G 3A to impose a local room occupancy excise tax rate at the rate of 6%, that the City of Salem accepts General Law 64-2A to impose a local meals excise tax option. Notice this hearing is posted on February 18th, 2010 at 6:06 p.m. and is advertised in the Salem Evening News on February 17th, 2010, both of which I have here as documentation. Absent currently is Councilor Pelletier. Councilor McCarthy, and I am presiding over this hearing. Just a few basic things up front before we get started. First of all, thank you all for coming. Secondly, this is going to be broadcast on SATV. The microphone at the front will pick you up at home, but that does not transmit inside the room. So if you want to be heard, you have to speak up so everyone in the room can hear you. There's two sets of mics on the tables. These go to TV, these go to this recorder, which is recording these proceedings for our city clerk. The two matters before us, there's a lot of discussion on both sides. I would hope that civility and decorum would override everything. We're all here, we all want to listen to what has to be said. We want to get as much information as we can to process, to go forward at some point and have a vote on this topic. I would ask that everyone try to, obviously, it's a public hearing, you're allowed to speak on the matter before us, try to be as brief and succinct as possible so that we can try to get everyone up here and have as much time. The mayor has brought forth both of these items, so I'm going to allow the mayor to speak first. She has a presentation in which she will present her overall picture for both sides, of which time, after she's done, the council will ask some questions, just because she's going to be bringing forth a lot of information. We'll ask questions of her, and then we'll open it up to the public. First, we'll take up hotel, motel. We'll start on one side of the room. We'll work our way right around. And after that's done, then we'll start, because they're two separate issues, then we'll go back to the meals, and we'll do it again. So, with that being said, there's no objection, I'm gonna open it up to the mayor to allow her, she's created a PowerPoint presentation, so, Your Honor.
Thanks. This is always a little awkward to stand up here. It's not the easiest way to do this, but I hope everyone can see the screen. We're going to try and obviously provide the council and folks who are here. I appreciate everybody coming out with as much information as possible. I do want to stress that this is not an easy decision to bring us to this point. We're really trying to work with the tools and the assets and the resources we have to do what's in the best interest of the citizens of Salem, and I hope people can understand where we're coming from. And I think as we walk through this, it will certainly tell some of the story as to how we derived at the decision we have to put this before the council. So just a quick update on the background of how we got here. Earlier this fiscal year, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts allowed cities and towns the opportunity to accept, through a local option, which is essentially a city council vote, a 0.75% tax increase on meals and an additional 2% lodging tax on hotel rooms. That would enable us to offset the reductions we've seen in local aid. I think members of this council know that this year the city received a $3.5 million loss in local aid. This means it's less than what we received last year. That's the fiscal year we're currently in. The prior year we had an $875,000 mid-year cut. That was the 9C cut that came through the governor. So obviously times have been tough the last couple of years. Next year we're anticipating a $3 billion state budget cap, and we can talk about where we think we're going to be next year. It's still a little early, but that's certainly the fiscal lens we've been working through. The Department of Revenue is charged with distributing and collecting the revenue. So essentially, much like the hotel motel tax works now, it's collected on a quarterly basis, and it's distributed to city and towns on a quarterly basis and collected from the respective agencies. This just gives you an idea of the timetable for implementation. There is a delay in terms of when any new tax would take effect. This spells it out. This is included in the legislation that allowed cities and towns to have a local option. So if we're able to put something in place by the March 1st of this year, the quarter it would start would be April 1st. There's somewhat of a lag time to give the state and obviously private parties an opportunity to bring things up to speed. It would enable us to collect the last quarter of this year in terms of additional revenues. So far, out of the 351 cities and towns, 72 communities have accepted a local meals excise. We have in bold some of the ones that are closer to our community. I think folks are familiar with Peabody. And if we head to the next slide, we know that there are 69 communities who have accepted the local rooms excise. Both Beverly and Danvers have this under consideration. Beverly, they're in the same process that we are, and Danvers, they accepted the local rooms option already, and I just spoke with the town manager. I think he's got it is planning on reconsidering meals at their next town meeting as part of their budget process. So I think as you're seeing budgets rolled out, particularly at the town levels, they start a little bit sooner than we do. I think you'll see more of the local option talk, and more communities will certainly begin to look at that as a revenue source as they're planning their budgets for next fiscal year. We thought it would be helpful to look at some of the state-by-state comparisons, since this is essentially a statewide tax, although we'll be able to add on a local option. And this gives you an idea of some of the states that are closest to us. Obviously, the state of Massachusetts is at 6.25. If we go to the 7.75 option, we'd be at 7% on meals. New Hampshire's at 9. Rhode Island's on 7 with a 1% local option for cities and towns there who adopt that. New York is the 8.38, Maine 8.5, Connecticut 6, and Vermont 9 with a 1% option on meals. This shows it just on a graph to give folks an idea where Massachusetts falls in comparison to other states with the meals tax. And this includes with the local option being added in. So you'll see, for instance, Massachusetts would be at 7 on this bar graph. So this would incorporate the increase. The next slide shows a state comparison with the lodging tax, the tax on rooms. Massachusetts, it shows the state commitment, and then the local up to the 6. Currently, it's up to 4. This would obviously represent the local option. Where New Hampshire's at, a number of states have increased this in the last year. I think both New Hampshire, New York, and Maine have all had increases within the last 12 to 15 months, and those numbers reflect that there. So it's 9% in New Hampshire. New Hampshire also includes tents, campgrounds, things like that as well. Obviously, they have a fair amount of recreational activity there. Rhode Island, it's 12 with a 1%. New York, 7 with the state, and locals can go up to 8.25. Maine, 8.5. Connecticut, 12. And Vermont 9 with a 1% option for cities and towns. Again, the bar chart, just trying to show the information in a different way, give you an idea where Massachusetts would fall. And we have incorporated the local option on the bar graph just to give folks some comparisons there. I thought it would also be helpful just to give you the council a sense. We're still early in our FY11 budget preparations. The next fiscal year starts July 1st. We're trying to get a handle on what all those costs are. We do a lot of fiscal planning, so some of these numbers we already knew. We could have told you a year ago what these costs are. Some of them are just coming in. Employee health insurance costs, one of our biggest items, and one of the areas we're looking for the most amount of reform. We just got the numbers from Maya, our insurance provider. That's expected to go up 12%. That's a $1.3 million increase in dollars for next fiscal year. The unfunded pension liability, we know this number because we work on actuarials and have that schedule. Will be increasing 5.7% or $450,000. On top of that, we have seen a drop-off on local receipts. We planned for that this year. We'll have to plan for it next year. Things like motor vehicle excise. Folks aren't buying, obviously, newer cars and more expensive cars. Building permits are down. The economy's down. We're not seeing a lot of those additions and renovations and things like that. We still have a lot of investment happening with construction. A lot of that's public, but the building permit fees generally are down. And investment income, that's the interest rates we receive on money in the bank. Interest rates being as low as we are, we know those numbers are going to fall off and have. And thus far in this year, we're on target with our budget, but those receipts we're going to have to really take a hard look at next year and likely reduce them again. I think this year we reduced them 3 to 5% in that magnitude, and we'll take a look at those numbers to make sure we can be on budget, but generally the trend has been going down, not up. All of our collective bargaining contracts are expiring at the end of this fiscal year. The teachers actually expire, I think, August 1st, so they've got a couple of months past the school, not just the teachers, all the school contracts, but they're all expiring with the exception of the teachers at the end of the fiscal year, and they're just 2 months beyond that. The other big issue, and certainly a concern for us, is the power plant agreement. That expires at the end of next fiscal year 11. The power plant's the largest taxpayer in the city, $4.75 million. We always have a very aggressive negotiation with them, and I think we will again, but it is a concern not to have that long-term stability in terms of that revenue coming in. Thus far, looking at the numbers, we're estimating the budget shortfall at $1.5 to $2 million. Obviously, still early. There's a lot of uncertainty around local aid. The governor's numbers at House 1 have local aid level funded. And just to be clear, level funded is a $700,000 reduction to Salem overall. That's because they're not fully funding Quinn, and there are assessments that tend to go up. So even level funded doesn't exactly mean we're getting all of the same revenues that we got the year before, because there are outside sections of the budget that are being reduced significantly. We used to get a lot of COP money for police. We don't have those dollars coming in. Again, the Quinn bill benefits, and we do have assessments that go up. When we receive local aid, the state gives us a pot of money, and then they assess us for things, for vocational schools, for the MBTA, for a whole host of things. And if your assessments go up, even if your revenue stays the same, it's a net loss. So it is a $700,000 drop. Still a lot of moving parts there. So this is an estimate at this point, and we'll continue to work as we prepare the budget to bring these numbers in line. And obviously, we have to have a balanced budget. We can't bring in a budget that has that's in the red or has a deficit, but it's something that is of concern to us. What local option revenues will mean. Now, the Department of Revenue, when this legislation was passed, prepared estimates for every single city and town. They already collect meals tax, they already collect lodging taxes, so they use that information to come up with estimates for cities and towns. This is what they're telling us our estimates would be for a 12-year period of time based on what they're collecting now. A couple of caveats to that, in that when they've collected the meals tax, it's just gone into a statewide kitty. So they have said for cities or towns that have headquarters of franchises, if you were the head of Applebee's and so the money was collected out of Boston, because that's where Applebee's is headquartered, for instance, it might skew Boston's number to make it look like they have more revenue because they have franchises outside. The revenue is, where the revenue is collected is where the tax would be generated from. I don't know that we have that situation. We don't have lots of franchises that have operations far outside, but it's just one thing for us to keep in mind around that number. I've talked to some of the mayors. Most have adopted this already. Most of them had said their numbers are coming in on target. A little off in terms of some of the quarters, but when you look at the full year, they think they're going to hit their numbers, as was estimated by DOR. If the City Council approves this by March 1st, and I am hopeful that at least we'll get some direction on this by the 1st, we will have that last quarter, which means that we would collect the $238,850 for the last quarter of this year. That obviously would help us in terms of additional revenue coming in to help with costs that we have. Knock on wood, we've had a decent winter in terms of the snow and budget removal costs that we have had. I shouldn't even say that, because exactly, I'm jinxing us now. The budget thus far, we've got a few areas we're concerned about. Veteran services is up. We know that's an issue we're going to have to deal with. I think we have something into the council now. But for the most part, our budget's on a year-to-date review. We're just over halfway through the budget, and it looks like everything's coming in in accordance with what we anticipated, save a couple of areas. But it certainly would be good to have this additional revenue, especially what we're looking at for next year. And, where will the money go, which is the next thing we want to talk about. I think that is certainly important. We've really tried hard to make sure we're not just plowing this revenue into an operational budget, into the, anyone's idea of what a black hole would be with government. We want to be judicious about how these revenues are used and try and put them to good use in a way that makes sense for all the citizens in the community. One of the needs that we have, and I think this council is fully aware of it given all the capital work we've done in terms of capital programming and planning, is capital needs. The pavement management plan would tell you we had $15 million worth of roadway work. That's road repaving, road repairs that need to be done. I think we've spent about $4 million. I mean, we've really tried to make a conscious effort to address a lot of the road repaving needs that we have. But there are many of those. Sidewalk repairs, public building maintenance. I think many of those things we've seen in the capital programming budget. And as you know, when we delay things, it only costs them more. This building is in need of repairs. We have two schools that are in need of significant repairs. Both the Collins Middle School and the Saltonstall Middle School are in need of, they probably have water leaking in them right now when we see the wind-driven rain. So there are issues there that need to be addressed on a capital basis. We also have new demands that come up and hit our budget. We all recently agreed to the proposed North Shore Vocational Aggie School merger project. I know how valuable that project is. I know how strongly the counselors feel about it, and I think you know how strongly I feel about that. That's good for our region. That's good for our community. That's an educational benefit that we know we need to provide to the students who live in Salem, but it does come at a cost, and those are additional demands and stresses that we'll be seeing on the budget going forward to pay for the city's share of those capital costs. And then our reserves and our rainy day account. For a city our size with a $120 million budget, we really need to have 3 to 5% of our funds in a reserve to help. That really helps us. When we see these local aid cutbacks, we like to try and maintain a service level in our community. But because we don't have the sorts of reserves, we haven't built them up over the years, when we see local aid drawbacks, it influences us greatly in terms of the types of services that we can provide. We have been able to manage through that thus far, and I think we're doing our best as a council to have fiscal policies that make sense. We put a portion of all of our free cash in stabilization accounts as an example. All of the capital planning that we do and the fiscal forecasting, I think, help. But at the end of the day, we don't have adequate reserves. If we have a tragedy here with lots of snow or a terrible winter, we are really up against it. And I think one of the areas we definitely want to try and focus on are trying to find ways to make sure we're putting our community in a better position financially. That also helps us because we see bond ratings increase. We know that's a function of having more reserves in the bank, and doing so means we can borrow money at a cheaper cost. The other place this really will help in terms of where the money will go will be diversifying revenues. Anytime we have new revenues that aren't coming from property taxes, it allows us to relieve the pressure on homeowners and business owners who pay property taxes. The bulk of our revenues, over 50%, come from property taxes. We are at our maximum levy, and we have been for several years, which means that local aid has a greater influence on us when it's cut back. It also means it makes it harder for us ever not to be at maximum levy. We talked about this a little bit when we were setting the tax rate earlier this fall and going through the recap process. It also obviously helps us limit those increases going forward if we have a diversified revenue stream coming from other things beyond property taxes. A modest portion of the new revenues will be reinvested in promoting and marketing the city. We do that now with hotel motel tax dollars. 25% of the revenues generated from the hotel motel tax, lodging tax, go back to marketing the city. That helps pay for the visitor guide. That helps pay for promoting our city to visitors to come and stay. I look at that as feeding the goose that lays the golden egg. If visitors are coming and staying in a hotel, that's good for Salem. That's good for our economy. And if we're reinvesting in promoting, marketing the city to bring visitors to our community, that's a continued process that we want to see grow, and that 25% investment more than pays for itself. We know there are things we want to do beyond that, though. Councilor Lovely and I were both at the Destination Salem annual meeting. There's some terrific things going on trying to market the city, but there are lots more things we could be doing if there were just a small amount of resources to go towards that. One of the things we've long hoped for is a shopping and dining guide. We have a lot more year-round retail, not only in the downtown, but in the city. And obviously we have terrific restaurants. Trying to promote them, not just to folks who live in New York and Philadelphia and maybe come here in October or maybe come here, a few times a year, but trying to market to folks who live within 15 miles of Salem, because that's really a strong base for us, given the number of restaurants and the vast choices that we have and how wonderful they are. This funding could go to help support initiatives like that, to find ways to get people here, to make sure they're thinking about coming to Salem for all the things that we offer. Lastly, we think this new revenue will help us be able to reduce some of the liquor license fees. This is not an insubstantial amount. The 25% is roughly, Rich, do you have that number? Yeah, it depends on what type of license you have, but it's roughly $800 for some of the folks who have full service licenses. I know this is hard for some of particularly the smaller restaurants and for some of the eating establishments here. We're trying to find ways to make it easier to have direct results from these additional revenues going in to benefit you from looking at this from reducing liquor license fees. So that's one way. We also want to try and share some of these revenues in a way that makes sense and not always look like we're just coming after folks on fees and restaurant with fees and increases. I think one of the most important things we want to try and stress is what local options provide us. That's, as a community, an opportunity to diversify our revenue stream, ensure that we're not overly relying on residential property taxes in particular. We know how high those are. We know how difficult those are to control. And anything we can do to try and bring in revenues from other sources is normally very helpful. Our tourist base is a large tourist base, and folks who come here, I think, just like folks who live here, like to drive on roads that don't have potholes and sidewalks that are fixed, and like trees and benches and all the things that I think people who live here enjoy. They also cost money. This is one way from the visitors who are coming here. A meals tax, a hotel tax allows them to contribute to our local economy and help pay for some of those things. Safe roads, clean roads, safe neighborhoods, emergency services, all the things that we know we need to provide, not just for folks who use restaurants or stay in hotels, but certainly for all of us. This is one way to help offset some of those costs with the people who are coming to Salem. We think 75 cents on a $100 tab, if it was $100, is a small investment, and it's certainly not something we think is going to deter people from coming to restaurants in Salem. We have wonderful dining establishments. I don't want to do anything to hurt those, and we think this is a small way that we can derive revenues in a way that won't stop people from coming. That is it in a nutshell. I'm happy to answer questions. I mostly want to stress, I know this is hard. I certainly don't want folks to think this was the first thing we did. Hey, great, we have local options. We can raise revenues. Let's go out and do this. This local option was made available to cities and towns as of July 1st. We've really taken some time to explore what other options we have. We have cut and cut and cut in this community. I've laid off individuals. I've consolidated. We're looking at regionalizing. We are leaders in looking at reforming everything from health insurance and plan design and pensions. At some point, though, I still need to get services delivered. I'm trying to balance the interests that we need for the services that people want here, the quality education, safe streets. We go to neighborhood meetings, folks want more. I need more, frankly, I need more police officers. I need more DPW employees to deliver the sorts of services that people want. And I'm trying to balance ways to do that when we know property taxes are high and the state certainly isn't going to be in a position to provide us with more local aid. So I don't come here suggesting that this is easy. I know this will have impacts on businesses. We are somebody who prides ourselves in this administration in trying to promote businesses. I hope that folks understand the perspective we have and why we're at the place we're at and why we're suggesting this. And I hope you understand we wouldn't be doing anything that we think would be deleterious to your business. I think we're trying to promote business. We see that as being good for Salem. That's why we give back to promotion and marketing the city. That's why I hope we'll be able to continue to do that and even enhance it if we have these additional revenues. And at the end of the day, that's the reason why we're here. Happy to answer any questions that members of the council may have pertaining to anything that we've talked about.
Councilor O'Keefe.
Mr. President, thank you, Mayor, for a thorough and comprehensive analysis of both bills. As I discussed earlier with you and Mr. Viscay, I'm really interested in one part of possibly reducing the athletic fees that children at the high school are assessed, the families are assessed against. And I really, talking to Mr. Viscay today, Congress talks about earmarks. Is it possible to have, in this program, I know you say Destination Salem Mall, is it possible to earmark funds so that this enormous fee that children have to pay, the parents have to pay, both taxpayers and non-taxpayers at our high school, is it possible to do something like that in this?
Thank you, Councilor O'Keefe. I'm a little hesitant to start specifically designating ways to use the funds relative to that issue because I just don't know where the budget is heading in terms of local aid reductions, what's going to happen with Chapter 70. The Senate Ways and Means chairs came out today and said that they're actually planning on cutting Chapter 70 by at least 3%. A substantial portion of our school revenue comes from Chapter 70, the local aid. But I understand that's a priority, not only to you, but to me. I'm a person who grew up playing sports, played in high school, and never paid a fee. So it really disheartens me that that is something that might keep students away because they don't want to ask for assistance. Anyone who wants to play can. If you need assistance, we do provide an ability to play without paying the fee. But I know sometimes folks don't want to do that, and they end up either coming up with something in a very difficult way or just not even playing. And I'd love to find a way to do that. And I can commit to you that we'll make it a priority. I know members of the school committee say that, but it's hard for me to say to you today that we can definitely do that. It's not an insubstantial amount of money that they collect in fees as well, and so I don't want to lose that part of the discussion either.
But again, I'm not holding that over your head that if I do vote for this, that I expect you to do it. You will look at it with Mr. Viscay and give it a good shot to see if you can do it?
Yes, and with the school committee, who I think would welcome the idea.
Right.
It's just something I wish I could commit to.
I understand. Thank you, Mayor.
Council Fury.
Yes, please. Mayor, thank you very much for an excellent presentation. And I especially like the last part, as Councilor Keefe says, where will the money go? That's very important to see where it's going to go. That's critical, and I appreciate that. We appreciate that very, very much. Abraham Lincoln's words echo more than ever before, 201 years later, after his birth. We must think anew and act anew. You mentioned that in your inauguration speech at the Old Town Hall. We cannot bury our heads in the sand. I look at throughout the audience today, I see public safety. I see my own sons, 4 sons, going through public schools, and cutbacks have a human face. It's just not an athletic fee or toilet paper or public supplies. It's teachers and police. And if we do cut back, it'll be the young and the brightest police force that we just had entered the fire department, mixed, multicultural, new, representing the 21st century. And did you ever think, and everybody thinks about taxes, of a ticket tax? Would this be, no, this is a better alternative than the ticket tax. This is more earmark money better. What's better than a ticket? Is this better than a ticket tax?
Thank you for raising that issue. I think you and I were both on the council the last time the ticket tax issue came up, and I do think that is something that is definitely worthwhile of a conversation, and something I hope the council and we can work on together with the tourism community. Unfortunately, in Massachusetts, cities and towns just don't have the authority to tax on their own, which is probably a good thing in many respects. We only have certain powers given to us. The state does not allow cities and towns to assess a ticket tax. We'd have to go through an elaborate process, I think, of one coming up with what we'd like to do, go through a home rule process, and then get that approved by the legislature. So at present, a ticket tax isn't available to us. I think it would probably be something that's very controversial. I also think it's very worthwhile of a discussion. I've had some discussions with members of the council who feel that strongly, and I think rightfully so, that it's something that should be considered. I think that's a healthy dialogue. We should start that. But right now, if we wanted to put a ticket tax in place, the law does not allow for that. We could not impose meals tax on our own. We could not impose lodging taxes on our own. We rely on the state legislature to give us and grant us authority and power to do that. They did that with the local option on meals, the 0.75, it's capped at that. We can't vary from that. It has to be that amount. And they did that with the 2% on lodging. I think they did that in response to the fact that they were cutting local aid. I think they recognized that cities and towns rely on that local aid. We lost $3.5 million last year, and this was a way they thought cities and towns could make it up. Obviously not fully, because it's not equal dollars, but that was something that they envisioned, and they gave us the authority to do that through a vote of the city council. There is no law allowing the ticket tax to go forward. I do think it's a worthwhile conversation, and one I hope we can engage the tourist community in. Not the last time we did this, it really was just in order to propose without any dialogue. I think many of us read about it in the newspaper, and that, to me, it doesn't seem like a productive process. But there is a productive process to have around that, and I hope that's a conversation we can have.
On a personal level, I may tell a little story, if I may, quick.
Council Fury.
I had a chance to visit China for a whole month, just before they were getting ready for the Olympics, and they were tearing down what was the 1950s and 60s and 70s in Beijing and throughout China. And they're building right now, as we speak, 500 Walmarts. We're building one Walmart in Salem as a super Walmart. They're building 500 Walmarts throughout the country of China. And they're reinventing themselves. And there was a story going around, and you saw building cranes everywhere, reinventing themselves and looking to the 21st century. And that's what Salem is doing too. You see cranes everywhere. And wherever you went in China, you see the building cranes, and you say, the national bird of China is the building crane. When you look around Salem, how lucky we are in this perfect storm economy. You see building at Salem State College, the dorms, a new Salem State Library, the Riverwalk. This is a thriving, exciting city to live in. A lot of new restaurants have opened up recently. It's an exciting city to live in. We want to keep this Salem going there. This is not an easy choice for you to think about in this very difficult perfect storm economy. But we can't bury our heads in the sand. There's very few alternatives. And you see public safety, you see children, your own children in the school system, my children in the school system. There were very few alternatives beyond this, besides cutting. And we're here to avoid that situation, and I appreciate you coming up with this. When the state legislature was coming up with this idea, I spoke to you about the possibility of having Salem go through this. So I'm glad you're coming before us, and it's a difficult choice on your part, and it's difficult for the cities and towns. But I can remember just a few years ago, there was a referendum going on saying no smoking in restaurants. It's going to hurt our restaurants. And if we put a smoking ban in the restaurant, I was the only city councilor to vote against smoking in the restaurants. There was no smoking in the restaurants. I believed in that. And they came in, all the restaurants came in, and many businesses that, the waitresses will be affected, the tips will be affected, clientele will be affected, business will be affected, and so on. When you look back, actually, we've done better. The economy is better. People realize that it's better for our restaurants, for the workers, for the employees, for the business people, for people going in. And I think this, in the long run, if you look at it with the human picture, in the long run, 5 years from now, like the smoking situation, this will be better for the city of Salem, because I don't want to cut, sincerely. I think I see Councilor Vino in the audience, now former Councilor Vino. Councilor Prevy is serving now as Administration and Finance. Going to the budget, and you present a very thoughtful, well-presented budget. Very little to cut. There's very little to cut. And this is an alternative for us to think anew and act anew, as Lincoln would say, in the 21st century. We have to think anew. This is better than a tax. This is better than a ticket tax. This is across the board, universal. People coming in, us, ourselves, that we use the restaurants and the hotels and the rooms in Salem. I think it's a win-win situation for the city of Salem 5 years down the line. Just like smoking, I think people will get used to it, come to Salem, and continue to come to Salem, because what's happening in Salem is people want to come to Salem. And you're proud to live in Salem, proud to represent Salem. And I think this is an excellent choice on your part, man, a difficult choice, and I appreciate it.
Councilor Ryan, then Councilor Pinto, and then Councilor Ronan.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mayor, for bringing in this. Nobody likes taxes. Just wanted to thank the state for allowing us to get this 0.75%. They're very generous. I mean, the city should be collecting the 6.25%, and the state should be getting the 0.75. There's so much waste in the state, it makes me mad. But nobody likes taxes, and when you look at the tax, I'm always like, what's the straw that's going to break the camel's back? I keep seeing this argument, it's only 75 cents on a $100 bill, and I've gone out to eat a couple times, and I've looked, and I'd be like, well, it wouldn't have stopped me from going out. I mean, you give a 20% tip or whatever someone gives, plus whatever tax you pay. The problem I have is I want to see where this money's going. When this money comes into the city, does it come in so you know that it's coming in from local options, so we know this is the amount we're getting? It's not like coming through like local aid? Is that?
No, it's a separate amount that we can obviously see and know how much was bringing in. We know how much comes in regularly from the hotel motel tax. It comes in on a quarterly basis. It does not come in the same bucket as local aid. It's a separate check. It's actually an electronic payment that comes into the city. And then obviously where it goes, the council will obviously play a significant role in that, because you control the budgets, and we'll see it going out the door as well as see it coming in.
And the reason I ask that, because on the lines of Councilor O'Keefe, I don't want to see this go into like the general fund black hole. I'd like to see like certain percentages. I'd want to see numbers going to, probably a lot of it going to tourism to promote the city, because that's only going to increase that tax and it's only going to help. But I also want to see other things, maybe like for the schools, capital improvements, rainy day fund, maybe hiring police officers to patrol the parks like we had before, so that will stop vandalism, which will bring some of our costs down. But I mean, I'd really like to see the percentage. I don't like on the presentation where you said a majority will go here and there. I mean, that doesn't really, it's just, you might as well just throw it in the general fund. It doesn't really do anything for me.
Councilor, we will, I mean, it's been hard to say specifically where dollars will go, because we don't have it, but the council has to approve the budget, has to approve the capital, and we can certainly show you where the money comes in. It won't, we have to project out for next fiscal year. They won't really even allow you to rely on it as a budget item until you have it. So you'll have full say as to how those dollars are actually expended in both approvals of budgets, capital plans, and certainly we always seek council's input on what capital items we should think about including in the capital plan, as well as, you know, we want to try and set some budget priorities. We're hoping to do that as part of our joint session, joint retreat, to look at what priorities we should be focused on. So I think I'm relying on your input and hope you'll have a big part on where it's going. And it does come in separately. I know there's some fear. Some of the other cities and towns express this, that, you know, the state will collect it and we'll never get it. Absolutely not. We've never seen that with the hotel tax, even through tough times. It goes in almost a separate kitty, and it comes out on a quarterly basis to every city and town, depending upon who's accepted local options.
Yeah, I kind of, well, through you, Mr. President, I still think that we can still do something like a percentage. It doesn't have to be, like, for tourism, how much, like, I don't want to put you on the spot, but, because you don't know, but like how much percentage-wise, like, would you think would go back? I mean, it doesn't
Right
have
now, we do 25%, and so Look, when we show you the budget, you see that 25% going right back to Destination Salem. I'm happy to have that. That, to me, seems like a fair number and a reasonable number. If we think it should be higher or lower, we can certainly have that dialogue. But that, to me, seems like a good place to start.
Okay. Thank you.
All set?
Yes.
Counsel Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Honor, here we are again, huh? It's all about the money. I'm just curious as to the cost of the merger, the vocational merger, because I read that Peabody was the highest, we were second, Beverly was third, and then it was Gloucester, who's in the process of maybe beating the mayor up there. But what is the amount? Do you have it?
I have that schedule. This first year, the debt service is fairly low. Fiscal year 11, it's not going to be that high. Even fiscal year 12, I think it ramps up. I think the highest number it starts going up to is in the 300s, the mid 300s for the debt service. So, do you have it, Rich?
The total? The total that it's costing us?
Running it forward?
Well, what I read was that we were the second highest community behind Peabody, and that Beverly was at 5.5 and Gloucester was at 5.39. So I'm wondering, are we more closer to 6? Is it
I don't have the,
You didn't run it out.
I don't have the folder, but I do have the projections of expenditures fiscal year 12 is projected to be $90,480. That is the first year of the bands. The second year of the bands is expected to be $180,000 in fiscal year 13. And then the largest debt payment would be the first year of the permanent bond, fiscal year 14. And it's $452,299.
We can run it out
I don't know what
forward
that
for you.
relates to in dollars as far as what the total cost is, because I didn't bring that sheet, but I just have the forecasted payments for the debt.
But we had it, I think, in the information we gave to the council right before the vote. Beverly and Salem are neck and neck in terms of the numbers. So when you see some of the bigger numbers, it's done by percentage of students who attend. Peabody will have the highest percentage because they're merging their, or expected to, their vocational program into the new school. Salem and Beverly are almost like a 2-3. We're normally about 18%, and Beverly's about 16%. And that trend has continued for the last 10 years. We went back and looked at what trends you would be looking at. So we can run it forward. I've always looked at it like an annual increase. So we know it's fiscal year 12. It actually won't impact us at 11 at all beyond just the regular tuition payments that we make. The debt service on the capital kicks in 12 with a more modest number, but obviously that grows to the 450 you've seen, and then it starts to trend down. So we can run that out forward. But it's probably in line with what Beverly's paying, maybe a hair,
5.5.
yeah, a hair greater than that in terms of the total commitment. I don't know off the top of my head.
Thank you. All set, Mr.
You all
President.
set? Counsel Ronan.
Mr. Chairman, our property tax assessment now is, as you said, it's at the maximum levy. That is, our property tax has gone up 2.5% every year as far back as I can recall. You have suggested in this, if we impose this tax, that there would be some property tax relief. Can you say whether or not either our tax bill or our tax rate would go down?
Let me be clear, no, I can't. What I can tell you is the sources of revenue that we rely on to fund the city operations, over half of that is property taxes. The rest come from share of local aid, local fees that we collect, and the other sources that make the budget up. If we have a larger share of revenue coming from those other sources, Counselor, I'd hope we can provide some property tax relief, meaning it doesn't have to go up 2.5%. But I don't want to be in a position to tell you, oh, we're going to give you a tax break on your property tax bill without knowing what's happening with local aid, where it's going. I know if we diversify our revenues, if we have revenue streams coming from other places, that we don't have to solely rely on the property tax to the amount that we do. And I think that's a good thing. So I'm not trying to be disingenuous, but I don't know that I could say I'm going to give everybody a $100 rebate or a $300 rebate without understanding all the dynamics that come into play in this budget.
Counsel Ronan.
Mr. Chairman, here's the problem with this tax increase. There's no indication at all where this money's going to go. If you watch that PowerPoint presentation, and I took notes, the money is promised to virtually every source in the city. I noticed this week that there was a letter writing campaign. I got a letter from somebody from the fire department, somebody from the police department, somebody from the school department. All of these people thinking that they're going to get something from this tax increase. This money isn't earmarked anywhere with the exception of 25%. When we first, the city of Salem, when we first imposed a local option tax It was a 4% tax on the hotels in Salem. And the agreement at that time with Mayor Salvo was the amount of revenue taken in from that local option tax would be put back to promoting the city of Salem. Not a percentage, but 100%. 85,000 was estimated at that time, and 85,000 was going to go right back into promoting the city of Salem. It made sense in that instance. But here, there's no such earmark. The presentation really promises that this money will go to capital needs, road pavings, sidewalk repavings, park maintenance, building maintenance, public safety, education, public services, and property tax relief. That's why I asked the mayor the question on the property tax relief. This is a situation where you stare into the mirror like Harry Potter. Anybody that's read that, you remember the mirror of Erised. And you see what you want to see. So the police that are calling me, asking me to vote in favor of this tax, they see that this money is going to the police department. The fire department, the same way. They see that this money is going to them and the fire department. The school committee, the same way. The problem with this, with this tax at this time is that it's not earmarked anywhere. So really, everybody here can come and talk about the value of money. It would be wonderful if Salem had more money. Salem's budget is roughly $123 million, and many of our costs are fixed. Salem is a city the same size as Beverly. Beverly takes in approximately the same amount in property tax that we take in, about $70 million. Their educational budget is roughly the same. Their healthcare budget is a little bit more, but their overall budget is $98 million, where ours is $123 million. It doesn't take any great courage to pass a tax. Whether that tax is 0.75% or higher, it's a tax. And with respect to the hotel tax, you're taxing really just two entities in Salem, and that's a grossly disproportionate tax. Thank you.
Mr. President, and I just want to make a clarification point, because I think it's important that we recognize how the resources coming in will be used. Maybe the PowerPoint was meant to provide some insights into that, and maybe that it's not as clear as it could have been. The value of having the additional revenue coming in and why it's listed in terms of capital, and when you say roads, sidewalks, parks, those are all capital expenditures and things that we routinely include within our capital budget, and those are, we're stewards here. We're blessed with 32 parks and playgrounds, and we need to keep them up. We need to mow them all. We have several miles of roadway. It's our responsibility to make sure they're safe for travel and that they're in good repair. We have schools. It's our job to make sure our kids are educated in a place where the heat works and the building doesn't leak, and the list goes on. Anytime we can have additional revenues that are coming into the city and put them towards capital, where frankly, if you asked me what my first choice was, I'd put money in tourism promotion and capital costs. I think those are investments that are very worthwhile. When I'm able to invest additional dollars in paying for those capital needs that we know we have, we know what the list is, it's always, frankly, more than we have in terms of resources to deal with. That relieves pressure on the operational budget. That means that instead of having to come up with $1 million to support debt service to fix the parks, the playgrounds, the roads, all of those things that we approve in the capital plan, and I think we've come to a point where we actually have a planning process. We seek input from all of us in this room and try and do so in a manner that makes sense, both short-term and long-term. That means that's $900,000 or $1 million in terms of this revenue, $900,000, that doesn't have to come from property taxpayers. That doesn't necessarily have to be part of the operational budget and put pressure in other areas. So if I have $900,000 in new revenue to put towards the capital needs that we have, that means we might be able to spend more money, relieve some of the pressure on the operational budget, and hire a new police officer or hire a new DPW worker. It doesn't mean that I'm plowing the money into every single thing. And how that money is expended is not my decision, it's our decision. I propose a budget I seek input before I do that. And I look for you to tell me what we should be spending dollars on and what those priorities are. So I'm not promising the world we're going to get everything. Let me be clear. But I think if we have an additional sum of money coming in, $900,000, that means I'll either be able to do more roads or do the same amount of roads and maybe hire a police officer or do something else in the operational budget that I wouldn't ordinarily be able to do because that money would have to go to support that debt service. So I hope that's kind of clear to folks. I'm not trying to promise the world. And frankly, I'm going to rely on you to help us understand what's the best place to put it. Where do we get the biggest bang for our buck? I happen to think capital and promotion are probably the two biggest areas. And if I'm spending the new revenues on doing the paving that needs to be done, that means the budget on the operational side is not so pressure-packed as we all know it is. I've given this council the last 4 years, 4 budgets. 3 budgets? 4 budgets. Every single one of them have had significant reductions. The only departments that were increased in the current budget, the only department that was increased was veterans. Schools were level funded. Every other department was cut. And we have to. We have to have a balanced budget. So if I have $900,000 more in revenue to play with, I'm going to talk to you, and let's talk about how you want to spend it. You're going to have as much control about it as I do. And I don't think we're going to be telling the police officers, happy days are here again, or the schools, hey, hip, hip, hooray, we're loaded. But it does give us an opportunity to spend money on capital, relieve a little bit of pressure on the operational budget, and hopefully, Counselor, put us in a position where we're not always taxing to the levy. I'm a homeowner too. I hate our increases in property taxes. I know how regressive that is and how difficult that is. It doesn't matter what you make, whatever your house is assessed at, it's the most regressive tax we have. This is one way to collect revenues. It's hopefully will put us in a position to not always be at the maximum on that property tax. Does that clarify it a little bit, I hope? I'm not trying to promise the world. I'm just trying to show you how we can use those dollars in a way that makes the most sense.
Council Privy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Question to the mayor. Mayor, I think every councilor has a copy of the Department of Revenue Guide to Sales Tax on Meals. And there's a section under there that has definitions, and it talks about what is defined as a restaurant. There's 13 different items here that break down cafes, cafeterias, canteen trucks, coffee shops, cocktail lounges, diners, lunch counters. So there's 13 of them. Do we have a list that identifies how many collectively throughout the city would be affected by this?
I think anyone who sells a meals, who's paying a meals tax now in the state, who pays the 6.25 to the state, would be required to pay the 0.75 if it was adopted by the council. I have a list of folks who we license, but I don't believe we have a list of all those categories broken down in the manner in which you do. We normally license folks for CVs, the common victualler licenses. But anyone who's paying the state now a meals tax, if this was adopted, would be required to increase it to 0.75.
Okay. So we have people who had to get a license. We obviously track those to the licensing department, and we have a number. Do you know what that number is roughly?
I don't know what all the CVs are. I could tell. I don't know it off the top of my head.
Okay.
I say common victualers. That's what we normally require anyone who has an eating establishment to obtain on an annual basis.
And then we have a group of people that perhaps don't fit under that category that need licenses that would still meet this definition, though.
For instance, a canteen truck. I don't know that we license canteen trucks with a CV license, so that would be something that we'd have to look at. But if they're paying the 5% now, they would have to pay, I'm sorry, the 6.25%, this was increased, they would have to pay the 7%.
So like the cafeteria at the high school, they would pay that as well?
The cafeteria at the high school, the Black Cat, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, they operate as a nonprofit, so I don't.
Okay, so they would be
right.
exempt from that.
I will want to clarify that for you, but that would, I don't believe we're paying it now.
Okay.
So.
Just to make sure. All right. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilor Lovely, then Councilor Ryan again.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mayor, just a clarification, I just want to make sure I understand this. I actually have the local auction exercises bulletin from the Department of Revenue that I printed off today, and so I've got what we would be actually adopting. So for the meals tax, it's 0.75. But for the hotel motel, it's up to 2%.
That's correct.
Okay, so you don't have to, the city does not have to adopt the full 2%.
That's
It's
correct.
up to, or a fraction thereof.
That's right. We're proposing to, but it's up to the council
Could
in
be
terms of what they
reduced. Okay, I just wanted that to be clear. Do we have, my biggest concern here, especially for the meals tax, I don't know if this really impacts the hotel motel tax, but for residents of Salem who are going to be paying this meals tax, do we have the tourist numbers for people that, dine, or, do we have anything like that we know what numbers are coming in? Because, I mean, I see that our tourist, industry picks up in, June, and then, right around November, it's just about gone. So, but, I mean, it really gets heavy, really the month of October leading up to that. I'm just concerned that, it's the residents of our city that are going to be really paying this tax, this additional tax. And even though we are a tourist destination, I think the bulk of this is coming right from the people that live here. And, and in surrounding communities, but really not the tourists that come here. Just my concern, and why, I'm taking a hard look at this. No one wants to raise their hands for an additional tax, especially just given, recent elections, the recent Senate election. Boy, that was resounding. How people are feeling. They're pretty fed up. To send a Republican to the Senate in Massachusetts, it tells you, what, they're fed up. Because Democrats usually, are just that much more liberal, especially with spending. So anyway, we don't really have a handle around that.
It's really hard to estimate because, obviously we don't card check anybody or anything before they go in a restaurant. I think anecdotally talking to some of the restaurants, some have a larger tourism business than others. Obviously there are the local places that we all go to that maybe are not as heavily reliant on tourists or visitors.
Well, maybe once we open this up to maybe this business owners here,
They may have more
tell
insights.
us, okay, can you tell us, is it resident based, or when did your tourists come in, and maybe what the percentage of their business is? We could maybe get a
I have some
handle.
idea that would certainly be worthwhile.
Thank you.
Councilor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. President. My thing with Councilor Prevy's question about, I think that if we get a list of the food permits, I think the Board of Health has to inspect anyone who has a food permit. We know a pretty good number of how many people will be affected. And like Councilor Lovely said, no one likes taxes, but like this one's not like, not, I don't say forced on you, but you don't have to go to the restaurant or the hotel, so you can kind of avoid it, but you want to promote, you want these people to go to the restaurant. And the thing that just makes me mad, I'm just not happy with the state, because my analogy to this is we have a bucket of water with a hole in it. The state's sitting there holding the plug, and they give us more water. It's not gonna help us. If we don't fix the hole, it's just eventually we're gonna run out of water, and we're gonna be in a worse situation. And I'm just mad that they get the majority of the money when most of it's made here by each city and town, and I'm all set. Thank you.
That being said, anyone else? Okay, right now, we're gonna talk about the matter, which is Council Order number 105, which would allow Mass General Law to impose local occupancy. So we're gonna talk about the hotel motel tax. So, right now, we're gonna start on this side of the room, go right around. You need to come to the microphone, state your name and address, and let us know what you're thinking. So we're gonna start right over here. Anyone? Councilor Vino.
Citizen Vino, I think.
Well, once a councilor, always a councilor. Sure. Could you get me some while you're out there?
One of the things that used to frustrate me from time to time at these public hearings is sometimes they turn into public talkings. And, an hour into the meeting, we're just getting to the public. So, appreciate the opportunity to say just a couple of words. I would feel much more comfortable if I were sitting in that seat. I think just a couple of brief words. As Councilor Ryan said, nobody likes taxes. They're never easy whenever you're talking about raising revenue. As important as that is for city operations, always a difficult thing to talk about and a difficult thing to make a decision on. But in my view, they're It's always about choices when it comes right down to it. It's about choices and priorities and trade-offs. And I guess listening to the mayor and kind of setting the scene for the year ahead, I think I'm actually a little bit more pessimistic and a little bit more worried about what's coming down the pike for the city. So in my view, it's not really about, wouldn't it be nice if the city had more money and we should raise it and try to find fun, new things to do with it. In my view, this is about survival and maintaining city services that people rely on. In my view, it's about protecting the jobs of people who teach in our schools, who provide public safety on the streets, who make the city run every day, who plow the snow. And what I see about the year ahead, whether it's this fiscal year or the coming fiscal year, is that things are going to keep getting tough. I was at a meeting earlier today with the House Chair of House Ways and Means Committee. And I know some of you were probably at the MMA meeting where the governor talked about local aid being level funded. Don't believe it, because it ain't true and it's not real. There's at least $2 billion. I think the mayor talked about a $3 billion budget hole at the state level. There's a ballot question that I think people are probably familiar with, the rollback part of the sales tax. If that passes, we're talking about a $5 billion hole in a $28 billion state budget. There's no way that local aid, whether it be in schools or for cities and towns, is going to maintain level. That's going down steeply. If not this coming year, in the year ahead. So, in my view, this is not about earmarking things for stuff that we would like to do. And it's really about how are we going to deal with a $1.2 million increase in that environment in health insurance. How are you guys, because you're responsible for this with the mayor, going to preserve these services? How are you going to keep teachers from getting laid off, police from getting laid off? Because I think it's going to happen. And over-reliance on the property tax for this kind of thing is, we can't continue to do that. As good Ward 5 Councilor indicated, we do that as much as we can every year, and it's still not enough. So, I just think whether it's this coming budget season or mid-year next year, things are going to be really tough. And you can stand up and say that you don't like taxes and they're not a pleasant thing. I know that. But you have to see that as connected to the city's ability to provide the services that I want as a taxpayer and that we deserve, I think, as citizens. Now, we're talking about trade-offs, right? We're talking about 75 cents on a $100 night out. That, to me, is not too much to ask to put ourselves in a position to weather the storm that's going to continue to come for us ahead. And I think if you posed it, and I think that's an honest portrayal of the choice, and if you pose that choice to people, hands down, people are going to say, why would you not do that? Now, I know, these things can be sort of demagogued a little bit and made to be really simple, but in this case, it sort of is pretty simple. That's the trade-off. That's the choice that you have. It's the ability to stabilize the city's finances, continue to provide the core services that I want, that I think everybody wants. I don't want to go through another round of layoffs at schools, but that's the choice that you have. So if you think that it's worth it not to have 75 cents on top of a $100 tab going out to eat, to preserve the jobs of people who do important functions for the city, make that choice, but understand that that's the choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. I granted Council some leeway on that one because he was in a roll, and I know not to just stop when he's in a roll.
I apologize. Sorry.
No, right, we're taking up the matter that's before us. The first one, the mayor presented hers as an overall picture, but we have two separate issues in front of us, one being the hotel motel tax and one being the meals tax. So if the comments right now could be limited to your position and how you feel about the local hotel motel tax, and then after we're done that round, Then we'll go back and do the meals tax, so, because there are two separate issues in front of us. Renus.
Readers O's to 265 Essex Street, Salem Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for having me here, Mr. President. Thank you for the mayor for open and honest portrayal of what's in front of us. There is a lot in front of us. I'll try to keep myself to the hotel first, but there's some general comments I want to make too that apply to the hospitality industry in general. If you look at what's in front of you, I agree with the councilor, it shouldn't be in front of you. The legislature in Boston made the decision to put it in front of cities and towns, and we think that's a weak argument. It should have been made there, not here. But we have to deal with the way it's coming. If you look at the tourism industry in general, hospitality, the total dollars of tax revenue, direct tax revenue for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is over $250 million, all combined. Of that money, the state in the past year has dropped the money for marketing from a $9 million to a $2.25 million, which means that right now, in the promotion of tourism, the visitor center on the highway is closed. The Convention and Visitors Bureaus are working on a 20% of their regular budget and are all essentially trying to get by surviving in their offices instead of doing the job of marketing this Commonwealth. Within the hospitality industry, that means that a year and 2 years from now, we'll see the negative result of the spiral of people not coming here because we don't tell them to come here. In that sense, we have to compliment our mayor for making the 25% of the current hotel tax revenue available for marketing, because she's the only one in the state to do that. So that's a positive, and I want to make sure that you know that. I wish it was 100% like the way it was supposed to be, but I think that's unfortunately a dream. I do think, however, if you would go there, the money would repay itself later on. But that's a totally different choice. If you look at what happens with the hospitality tax and adding a taxation on it, our prediction is, and the prediction of our members in the chamber is, that you will essentially keep the spiral going. If you look at the current situation in the restaurants and the hotels, nobody's making money. The hotels, and I'll try to stick to that one, RevPAR, the revenue per room for the hotels, is down this year. Guess what? We're in a recession. People are feeling it in their pocketbooks. Even if you go somewhere else, you find a cheaper hotel, you try to negotiate a better rate, or you use Priceline.com and see what you can get. Really, if you talk, and I hope that you'll have, that we'll listen to John Berktum, who's the manager of the Waterfront Hotel. Listen to the story. If you add a percentage to the tax rate for the hotels, guess who's eating it? The hotel owner, not the client, because the price elasticity for the hotels is not there anymore. It's like any added cost goes to the hotel owner, and essentially you and me going to a hotel, we don't want to pay $109 if we can get $105 somewhere else. One of the things that I do want to mention is everybody in the city pays taxes. We're talking about trying to lower the tax rate for the residents. The property owners of the hotels, the restaurants, they pay the same taxes. And the levy stayed the same, but the money went up anyhow. If you listen to the business owners who really make Salem thrive and make us the envy of the North Shore, they've just gotten their health care bills. Rates are going up 22, 24, 26, 28%. If you look at all of that combined with all the fees and services that are involved, some people might think this is a 75% or 75 cents on a $100 bill. You can also say for the meals, or I'll do the meals later, for the hotels, the 2% is a 50% tax increase. You go from 4 to 6%. It is a matter of how you put the wording there and how you look at who is going to pay for the cost. And it's really within the chamber and within our business community. I think Councilor Lovely mentioned it. The things have changed in a whole big way. I think even a small tax increase might give Salem the disadvantage versus surrounding communities, but definitely versus communities in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and Portland, Maine, where the Hawthorne and the Waterfront compete against for business in the hospitality world and in the group and tour business. And I hope you will consider that in your decision on whether you will or will not approve the hotel motel tax, because We think the impact will be way bigger than what you see in the small percentage in front of you. And finally, and I'll get to the meals a little later, if you look at the total, $900,000, the site and retail study for the downtown 3 years ago gave you the numbers in an approximate that 80% of the downtown business comes from people in Salem and the surrounding towns. So if you look at the $900,000 projected, and you use the 80% number, $720,000 of that will come from the people in Salem and the surrounding towns. And it might be a little up or down, but they'll give you a little bit of an idea on who pays for what and where the money is coming from. Thank you.
Thank you. Just for the record, as you state your name and your address, at one point, I know the clipboard circulated, make sure you sign in so we have a record of it as well. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. My name is David Stern. I'm an attorney with Stern, Kelty and Wall here in Salem. I'm here tonight representing the Salem Waterfront Hotel. I've also been a business owner in Salem since 1994. I'm on the board of directors of the Salem Chamber, and I'm a patron of various restaurants and hotels here in Salem. I'd like to thank the mayor for her eloquent and thorough presentation. But frankly, for the hotels in this town, this tax is a killer. In this climate, Salem Waterfront Hotel would be hit from both sides on the meals tax and on the occupancy tax. I'll, for now, leave my presentation of the occupancy tax as requested.
Thank you.
Let's look at the years 2009 and 2008. Occupancy in the hotel was down 2.6% in 2009. The average daily rate was down $6.42. That's a big number. Okay? Revenues were lost in a six-figure amount. Okay? We're facing a climate where hotels and the hospitality business has been climbing since 9/11 and facing a recession into a situation where they are fighting for competition over pennies and nickels. 2010, suburban Boston hotel predictions. Occupancy rates will be flat at best. Average daily rate will be down 3% for 2010. And no increase is predicted until sometime in 2011, if that. There is extreme price sensitivity in this market right now. There is incredible competition. We cannot pass this 2% on to the guests, as Renus has eloquently spoken as well. It is extremely difficult. They will not pay. We have to drop our rates in order to absorb this tax. Picture competition with a corporate client who's going to book a bunch of rooms, what 2% means to that client in a competitive situation where a hotel in Salem is actually competing all along the East Coast up to Maine with Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and Portland, Maine, and other hotels in towns around us. And think of the efforts that have been made in the last few years between the Rotary Club and Destination Salem and the Chamber and Main Streets and the Partnership and all the merchants working hard to build this up, working hard to bring people to Salem. This is creating a competitive disadvantage. Now, we offer some discounts, AAA discounts on a hotel room, or an AARP discount on a hotel room. You know what that is? It's usually something like 10%. If you take the room tax and make it from 9.75 to 11.75, that's being completely absorbed. And the people that are renting these rooms know about this. They are price sensitive. And this tax would now come over sort of the magic 10% amount, which people are used to when they're booking rooms. The mayor made reference to the amount coming back as being a modest portion, and stated it was 25%. My understanding on the numbers from 2009, which we got from City Hall, was that only approximately $75,000 came back towards promoting tourism. So it really wasn't a lot. Now, Danvers, I guess, has passed this, and I'm pretty sure the hotels are going to feel this. They're going to get hurt by this. But Danvers is different than Salem. Yes, Danvers has a hotel industry, but it's not as strong percentage-wise as the hospitality industry here in Salem is. We depend on this a lot more than Danvers, who has a different base than we do. Beverly hasn't passed it yet. A city like Plymouth rejected this tax. And they're a town that's similar to us. They have built their tourist base on the history with the Mayflower and the Pilgrims and all that, and we've built our tourist base on history with the witch trials and so on. And they have recognized that this is a big problem for them. The other thing, and I think Councilor Lovely's raised an important point, does this really have to be an all or nothing thing? It's up to 2%, and that is a huge number. Also, really, seems to me this needs to be looked at a little bit more. Councilor Ronan has raised some interesting points about where the money is going to go. The budget is not set until July. Although it's good to be proactive on planning, I really think we need to look at these numbers and make sure that we're not creating a situation that's really a killer to the hotels in Salem. We would ask that you don't institute this tax, and at a minimum take a look at it. And I don't feel like it has to be an all or nothing tax. And if the council is inclined to institute it, to look very carefully at whether it actually should be 2%. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on the right side?
Good evening. I'm Richard Pavick, citizen at 35 Winter Island Road, along with my wife Diane, and owner of the Salem Inn at 7 Summer Street. My discussions are going to be in a little bit of contrast to what my peers are saying. We as property taxpayers to this city, the two of us pay over $60,000 a year in property taxes. We sure as hell don't want that to go up anymore. We collect rooms taxes from our Salem Inn of over $100,000 a year. We collect it, we don't pay it. And so there are 3 properties in this city that contribute to the hotel tax. That contribution that comes from the hotel tax has been one of the most beneficial things that's ever happened to this city. When that 4% tax, or the 9.7% tax, was initiated about 17 years ago, Diane and I, along with Michael Harrington, the Hawthorne Hotel, because the Waterfront Hotel wasn't there, begged Mayor Salvo to allocate that money to market the city. I want to give you a little bit of corporate history because I've been involved in it since it happened, since it started. I was the chairman of OTCA, which was Neil Harrington's first effort at doing this. And I've been the president or chairman of Destination Salem many times, and I am now. So when Neil Harrington actually said he's going to take all of the money and put $120,000 toward promoting Salem, he did it, but he didn't quite do it all. When a former mayor got elected, Stan Usage, he totally said, he threw us out of Salem City Hall. Literally. We had to negotiate with him for 6 months to get a memorandum of understanding with that man that the city would give Destination Salem, the new Destination Salem, $65,000 a year. I signed the memorandum of understanding, and he did. And we went into business. And the contributors, the businesses, and the in Salem and the tourist business contributed the rest of the money through membership. And so we had a budget. We were running along, and then somebody mentioned it. The ticket tax came up, and Joe Walsh, infamous Joe Walsh, came in as a part of the executive committee of Destination Salem and said, the mayor wants you guys to endorse the ticket tax. And if you don't, you're going to lose all your money. And we said, come on, You're not gonna do, the city's not gonna do that to us. We're the only ones that are promoting the city. He said, that's gonna happen. And we voted because we're a marketing organization, we're not the Salem Chamber of Commerce, that we could not afford, we could not back a ticket tax. The next day, $65,000 was gone out of our budget. Until this mayor came along. And she said, what they did was not right. And she said, she reconstituted the Destination Salem as it is now 4 years ago. And I am now proud to say I'm now again the chairman of Destination Salem. And that organization has done so much to make this city so popular and increase the economic development of the city. It's miraculous. The restaurants, the shops, everybody benefits from what Destination Salem does, and it's paid for by 25% of that tax, which is not a local tax. It's all the people who want to come to Salem, who are always going to come to Salem. We are booked for Halloween. We have 40 rooms for 3 nights minimum. They're booked for this year. That's what, 9 months from now? It's booked. The weekends in October are almost booked. They will come, even if the tax is whatever the hell it is, 11.7%. I don't care. They'll come. Look, I'm talking from a different sphere than the bigger hotels. They rely on businesses, meetings. We don't. We rely on strictly tourists. Those are the people who come to the Salem Inn and to the B&Bs here. They will still come. They will always come to Salem. They're not going to go to Marblehead. They're going to come here. And they're going to pay that increased tax no matter what. So, but now there's a caveat to this, my little presentation. The 25% that's given to Destination Salem, which has been a boon to this city, is not cast in concrete. Stan Yusevich took it away from us, just like that. Just took it away. No questions asked, it was gone. And we were in deep doo-doo for many, many years. We had to struggle. We had to get an earmark from the state to cover our debt of $25,000 because of what that means, what happened to us. Okay?
Thank you.
And I would like to see that you, our legislative body in this city, guarantee that 25% of that tax always goes to Destination Salem, because it is so important for the economy of this city. It has to be guaranteed. It can't be taken away from the next mayor's whim that something else has to be done with that mayor. If you, the legislative body, decree that 25% is codified in some legislation, it will continue to increase the economic development in this city. Tourism, I believe, is at least the second biggest economy in this city. Maybe the biggest. I wouldn't say it's the biggest. I mean, the hospital, which I was in 2 days ago, is a pretty big organization. But those are nonprofits. And the spill-off from the tourism business, which is the restaurants and the shops, and we are shop owners in the sense that we own shops downtown. You know that our tenants are just this past year in this recession, they're doing well. We have not had to lay off any people in our business, none. So I'm just asking you that in your considerations, that you adopt this increase in the tax, but you also codify it in the sense that it is in law, that it is quote, an earmark forever for Destination Salem, the 25%. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody, everybody on the right side's done? Anybody on the left side?
Pat Liberti, I live at 3 Lions Lane in Salem, Mass. Every year we see the tourists come in and we don't reap any benefits from that as taxpayers. We pay for the police, we pay for whatever we have to do downtown to make it tourist friendly. And I think it's sad that we don't get anything, although we're paying all that money out now with that property tax. I know it will affect the industry, but New York pays a high tax, room tax, and, you know, we're inundated with 20,000, whatever amount of tourism. And I think it's only fair that we, as taxpayers, or property owners, share the tax with everyone that reaps the benefits. Not always be the ones that come up with the money to pay for those things. And we need this money desperately. The revenues aren't there. You know, we're trying to bring in more businesses to kind of increase our tax base. And with the government or the state telling us you don't have that money anymore, it's going to come from somewhere. You know, we had to look at trash not that long ago. It's going to mean you're not going to clean the streets. You're not going to do those other things that we're used to. I think it's a fair and equitable to spread the wealth, as the saying goes.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Jim Moskovich, Ward 4, Gallows Hill Community Group. I'm not here to speak as the whole group, but a good portion of it, and I've been in contact with my counselor, Jerry Ryan. I wasn't going to come to talk tonight, and especially after that. I can't go. They can't match you guys. You guys are good. And they're right. In a lot of ways, they're right. And this was something that I wanted to stay away from, but I've been watching for the last 2 or 3 years the coffers go down. However the money's coming in, I can't speak to that. But I've been in constant contact with Jerry. I've been in contact with the police, safety issues that are in my ward, and especially in my neighborhood. We finally made the big time on Channel 7 tonight. The house next door to me was broken into. Actually, it was a home invasion. And people, 5 o'clock in the morning, we have major problems in the city. One of them is we don't have enough police officers. We may not have enough firemen. I don't know what that is, but I definitely know we don't have enough police officers. The police were great. They responded immediately. But as a ward activist, and I've been doing this for over 20 years, this is the worst I've seen it. I don't know where the money comes from. I know I watched the mayor struggle to get this money. Cities don't make products. They don't sell anything. So it comes from us. It comes from the businesses and the people. You know, I've been before you people for businesses to get liquor licenses and other permitting situations. And so it's not that I'm anti-business. I'm very pro-business. I understand that they pay their fair share of taxes, but I think it's something that has to be done. If this tax is to go through and it should be really considered, I really think that this is I would like to see as far earmarks, takes 25%, but also like to see some of this really earmarked for the safety, because this needs to be addressed. There's a lot that's been happening in this community. Like I said, me and Jerry have discussed this at length, I would say, with the situations that are going up on the Hill, and I think it's going on throughout the city. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'll make.
Councilor
Thank you,
Pinto.
Mr. President.
Just looking for somebody to step up and make a motion, because I can't do it.
I guess I'll have to. I'll make a motion that we continue this for further discussion, not at a public hearing, but maybe close, maybe with the council, that we discuss it, or I don't want to put it into committee. I really don't know where we want to go with this, Councilor. I would be happy to make a motion, but I'd like to really see how my colleagues feel about as far as further discussion and where we should go. So I am uncomfortable making a motion, which I will withdraw, which I really never made one, so.
Seeing that you didn't make a motion, I would agree with that. Anyone else? I mean, obviously, this is a very difficult situation. There's been a lot of information presented on this issue and the other one, which we're going to take up immediately after this. As I stated to some of my colleagues that asked me this very question. There's many options in front of us with regard to this. Right now, this whole issue is in the committee of the whole. It can stay there. We can refer this out of committee, take it to the council floor. There's a lot of options, but being the chair right now, I can't, there's a lot of options out there for us, but I can't bring any of those forward, so I would.
Is it seconded?
There was no, he withdrew his motion, so Councilor Lovely had her hand up first.
Mr. Chairman, I was just going to suggest that we just continue with the public hearing, listen to the meals tax portion of this, and take up the motions at the end.
Okay.
Close
Fair
the
enough.
public hearing afterwards. if we want.
And close, right, and then discuss both matters, and if motions want to come forward at that point.
Excellent, that's an excellent idea. I would concur with that. If there's no objections, then we'll open it up to the second part of why we're here tonight, which is the increase in the local option for the meals tax to increase to 0.75%. And once again, being left-handed, I'm gonna start on the right, because everyone over the last 2 years has always started on the left, so I'm gonna turn to the right, and we're gonna start right here next to Chris Cassidy from the Salem News. Anyone on this side that wants to speak either for or against the increase in the local option?
George Carey, the owner of Finn's Seafood Restaurant, 76 Wharf Street. I come here and I certainly am very concerned, and I think the presentation was good. And I've had many discussions with the mayor and some of you as well. And this is a very tough thing. I think what I think is very important for everyone to know, as you know, is that this is really two plans that I think there's been a real lack of leadership at the State House. And I can say that with clear conscience. That's now the work of this body and the mayor. Whether it be the Quinn bill, the 1-2 step, or these other things, I think it's a real problem. The House wanted a 1.25% increase in sales tax. It was approved. The Senate's version was, don't raise that, raise local, 0.75. So they adopted both measures. Each House had a different plan, and what we've got now is we've absorbed both of these plans. It is correct that it's only 75 cents on a $100 meal. It's also very important, it's actually $2 though, because as of August 1st, we just increased the sales tax by 25%. So it isn't just 75 cents. A local resident, a visitor, a regional visitor, or a tourist is now paying $2 more, if this is passed, than they were a year ago. A year ago, it was only 5%. They've been 5% for a long time. It's also important to point out that, in this environment where it is declining revenues, we can tax it to death, but it'll still keep spiraling down. But this would be a 40% increase in that sales tax, coupled with they've broadened the reach of this sales tax. So now if a person goes and visits our liquor stores, there's now a tax on that. And there is some irrationality. I do believe, like as you say, people won't move from town to town. And your point on smoking is, I lived through that. I actually was a restaurateur in Marblehead. That too went town by town by town. And at the beginning of that change, people moved or the smokers went to towns that still allowed smoking. And it really was, if it's not a good, it's not good to be smoking in a restaurant. I completely agree with it, and we love the fact that it's non-smoking. But if it isn't good, then it should be statewide. The minute it became statewide, it leveled the playing field again. One of our concerns is that it is true Peabody and Gloucester has adopted this, but a lot of other towns are really giving this some real thought. And I just wish this really shouldn't be an arbitrary tax that is town by town by town. And this tax certainly doesn't help towns that aren't blessed like we are, that don't have a restaurant base to grow on. If you take the $7.50 on the restaurant tax, that would mean that we're already collecting now over $6 million in the town or the city in tax. Unfortunately, it goes to the State House and you get whatever they choose to get. I think the bucket analogy is very true. But it is going to be 40%. It is going to be $2 on everything. And I think what really upsets me is that it's pitting, again, a lot of good business owners that are committed to the town. I think a great job by the mayor, great job by this group. It was a little over a year ago that there was a lot of volunteerism to help make that budget deficit with the school committee, where people actually donated money. That's the Salem that I like. We've been here, we'll be celebrating our 9th anniversary next month. That's great. This is really, unfortunately, the cities and towns are on the back end of this tax increase. The state's already grabbed their 1.25%, and now we're left with this. But it really should be equal. I think it is dangerous road that Salem leads in a lot of ways, but I just wish it would, this whole idea where it's arbitrary, I think is a very dangerous slope. I also think, take off my restaurant hat, I live in the state, love the state. We have greater problems. As Matt Vino mentioned, 2011, 2012, you've got I was in this chamber when the budget was 101 million. We got a cut. The taxpayers we're all faced with this. Our business was down 9% last year. It was our first year to be down 9%. Certainly the weather in June helped with that, but it's down. So we collect now 3 times as much taxes in my location than was there prior when I went there before, the restaurant that was there before me. But we have a bigger problem, which is if we don't start reform, both at this level and at the state level, we're going to be back here. I mean, the tax will have to be 20% to meet these budget goals. I mean, we're not collecting $2 billion anymore in capital gains. I think we're going to see some real static or continued decreases in income tax or whatever. But as we broaden this tax, I look at it as we've already raised the tax 25%. We've increased what we've taxed, candy, alcohol, so forth. And I think the mayor is right to say, we're not sure that level funding is going to happen for the city. Those are huge increases already on an industry. So I just think I really want to give it a lot of thought. I think it's really unfortunate. I think it's really I think it's bad laws that make this work like this anyway. Because both plans were adopted, and I think it really is, it sets us up for discussions like this when we should be looking to solve this. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Through you. George, when you had mentioned the state also expanded the tax to include, obviously, now liquor is taxed. And as a business, obviously, that has a liquor license and does, I would imagine, high volume of alcohol sales throughout the year. That additional cost in terms of the taxes, who absorbed that in your business? Did you absorb that, or were those costs, did you have to pass them on to the customers?
Well, I can tell you that we absorb it right now. I mean, this is an environment where, people should know this, Fins is cheaper today than it was 2 years ago. I've had to cut prices. We do get the same challenge to the hotels. The reality is when we do, we serve a lot of, I'm open 12 months of the year. We certainly benefit with the tourism piece and the seasonality and the regional visitor, but we serve a lot of Salem people, and we're very glad of that. They're my number one market in my restaurant. I get the data from my credit card companies, which is like 85% of my sales, of where the zip codes where they live. So I'm just feeding a lot of people from Salem. Marblehead is number 2, but the regional towns. And I look at Marblehead, Swampscott, Beverly, and Salem are my 4 biggest areas we draw from. We have to wind up eating that. A tour bus group that comes in, they visit the city, see the great things. They have one thing. The gas was up a year and a half ago. They were very, very aggressive. But they can't raise those prices. So they say, I'll come to Fins. We'd love to for lunch. I have $15 to spend. I was hearing that in 2001. I'm hearing it in 2010. I've got $15, $18, $20. We haven't been able to raise those prices. So regardless of what we encounter as business owners, we're kind of stuck to that. We've had to lower our prices because our guests are seeing, they're really cutting back on dining visits. The idea of lunch, or we don't feel like cooking, let's go out to eat on Monday. Those, don't hear that as much anymore. I think people are being much more frugal. I agree with it. I think it's a good, solid, personal finance decisions. And I think we all need to. But I can tell you, as a business owner, we've been faced with a number of cuts. We haven't really had a choice. I can't raise the prices to do that or raise my tax. I either make the right decisions or I'm out of business. It's literally that simple. And it's that stuff that and I realize it's things greater than the group in this room. I just think it's very unfortunate and a little reckless to increase taxes by 40% while we decrease the advertising when we're the 3rd best industry. And I think it's been, Salem has been great to us. And I think it's been great to see the growth in Salem. And we've used restaurants and attractions to help develop downtown. We're very happy. and we need the services to help us with that. But, you know, we have a bigger problem, which is what's going to happen in 211, 212, and this 75, cents on 100, which is really $2, we're underprepared to handle that. There's bigger issues like we all have, and I think I don't want to hurt this very good industry that's happened here. And we want to work with the mayor, though. I think that's very, very important, and we respect that. I think it's something that, they've given her a tool at the State House, and I understand her need to use that. And I think there's been a lot of good work here. I'm glad we've had the mayor for the last 4 years. But as a business owner, I have to speak and tell you that I'm concerned because it is greater than just the 75 cents. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Allen, 15 Pope Street, and owner of Red Lion Smoke Shop across the street. We have a number of $750,000, which is the meals tax, and I believe the 80% figure for what is out of the local economy is probably a reasonable guesstimate. Now, first off, Red Lion Smoke Shop does not sell anything that comes under this purview, so but I believe that it's going into effect will negatively impact my business, and I'll explain why. That $600,000, which is coming out of the local economy, so many people are living paycheck to paycheck. And so this is not money that they're taking additionally out. This is money that's not going to be spent other places, either less meals, less spending at Red Lion Smoke Shop, less at Treasures Over Time, less at Derby Square Bookstore. They're going to be spending $600,000 less in the economy. And what we use our money for at Red Lion Smoke Shop and these other businesses, well, we employ people with them, which are Salem residents who are paying rent. It's just going to be a ripple effect, much like when they say, if someone comes in and they spend a few dollars in the town, that money then goes on, and there's a multiplier effect. I believe there'd be just the inverse here of sort of a negative multiplier or a division effect, which is not really logical, but it sounds the opposite of a multiply. We talk about it being a hardship, for the city because of the lost revenues from the state as well. But the residents who are going to be paying this, they've had their utility costs go up, their energy costs go up, their gas costs go up, their insurance costs go up, and now their tax is going to go up yet again after a 25% increase and an expansion of the base of which the tax was on last summer. It's a hardship for them as well. I believe that to me, this in a way is sort of this, like a Proposition 2.5 override in effect, because you're collecting revenue that as of 6 months ago was not able to be collected. And I believe if those people who are on the fence about this, I ask you to consider putting it on a referendum. We did that with the ticket tax a few years ago as a non-binding question. It could be put on as a referendum as a binding question, and that way there you'd have guidance from the people who are actually paying this, the bulk of it. Not all of it, but certainly the bulk of it. And finally, if you feel that if anyone out there feels that we're going to have, and we have a laundry list of all the places where this money is going to help, but if anyone feels that we're really going to have a property tax decrease, and I pay between business and home over $25,000 in property taxes, so I pay a very big chunk. Then I have a bridge named Tobin that I'd like to talk to you about after this meeting, because I'm probably going to be looking to sell it, but I don't see a property tax decrease anywhere in the foreseeable future. But please consider the fact that people really are maxed out in terms of the finances they have, and this, as small amount as it is, the aggregate is still $600,000 coming out of the local pockets. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave McKillop, owner of Rockefeller's, 231 Essex Street in Salem.
I'm sorry, what was your...
Dave McKillop.
Thank you.
231 Essex Street, Salem, Rockefellers. I think that I have the solution. All we have to do is tax the state for collecting taxes, 13%, and we can win. We can win. What I wanted to do is, I actually don't want to reiterate the things that people have said. There is a point that was brought up by Councilor Lovely about the citizens in the area and how does it affect them, and, you know, how does that translate? That's number one. And the second thing is the plight of the businesses. First thing I want to make very clear is that the business industry in Salem has a great partnership with the mayor and her administration, and we work really, really hard together to try and make things really work well for Salem. But the problem is that the businesses, like George stated, are down. And you know, my friend Mr. Pavick said that the businesses are doing well. Well, this past year they're not doing well. They're struggling across the board, both retail and restaurant. And it's not just one area, it's not just one shop, it's across the board. And I think you have to understand that. The price and costs of things have gone up dramatically in healthcare, in overall cost of goods, in overall just cost of doing business in just about every avenue. So it's very, very difficult to try and get a foothold. We all know that the banks right now are very, very tight. It's almost impossible for a small business to go to a bank and try to get some sort of help. And you can not just ask me, you can just go out on the street and ask any retailer or restaurant, gee, you know, where are you at? And most of these retailers, most of these restaurants are living off of credit cards, remaining balances of whatever they have scraping together off of their homes, their equities, which is, there's none left. It's a real difficult situation for everyone, and I don't know how the mayor does it. I don't know how any of you do your jobs. All I know is that if I have a budget in front of me, I can't ask my customers for more money. It doesn't make sense. I too have cut my costs. I had to re-engineer my entire menu this year to bring down the costs because those customers are not who they used to be. There's an example, a very clear example. You can walk into my restaurant on a Friday or Saturday night and say, wow, this place is busy, you guys look great. But what you don't realize is that the average ticket price has changed as well. The average ticket price on a Friday and Saturday night 2 years ago would be about $45. The average ticket price today, I'd be remiss in saying maybe $31, maybe $27. On a quieter night, try $23, $22. So the spending habits have changed. So, you know, there's hidden costs as well. Credit card costs. More people are using less cash and more credit cards. So that means that we're paying more fees on the money that we would normally be bringing in. So instead of having 75–80% in credit card fee, 75–80% of credit cards being brought in, now it's 85, almost 90% of credit cards. So we're paying more fees as well. So there's a lot of things that are just hidden costs that we're dealing with, and we're trying to keep the price. I have to compete with George. George has to compete with me. I have to compete with Tavern. We have to try and kind of keep the playing field as level as we possibly can. Now, how does that translate? Well, here's the tough part. Thursday, Friday, well, not even Thursday, Friday and Saturday, we have a crowd. We have a group of people that do come in. They eat dinner, they enjoy their night, they enjoy the restaurant. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you can pretty much guarantee it's pretty close to a ghost town this time of the year. Normally, the trend is, in the summertime, we collect as much as we possibly can in the summer to pay the bills from the winter. And then October comes along, and we actually get a little bit of a nut. And that's just retail as well. And that kind of carries us through the winter until the cycle starts again. Last year, all of that money that we would normally pay our bills with was not there. We were just making the season. And October came around, and October ended up paying the bills for the rest of the year. So a lot of our businesses, myself included, that nut went from here to here, and we were going into January, February with very, very little. So it really, really is dependent on how much business is driven volume-wise, not amount, volume-wise. And it's all subliminal. And that's the only thing I want to make clear, is that George made a great point. $2 from a year and a half ago. I know it's important. I know you guys have to make some really tough decisions. So do we. We have to make tough decisions. We have to cut our budget. I have to get in there and do dishes at times. Those are the things that just have to happen. But It's a $2 increase, and it's all subconscious. People will actually make decisions based off of those changes. They are. We're trying desperately to get a foothold. We're trying to get back on our feet from what has been a very, very difficult year. Very, very difficult year. And it's all these little things that continue to push that wave back, that continue to slow the process down. And it's not fair to you guys that the state has put you in this position, but it is a position that we all have to deal with. We will work as an industry incredibly hard with this administration to make anything work. But in this situation, unfortunately, we agree to disagree a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, to the extent that you separated the hearings into the hotel part of it and the meals part of it, once again, David Stern representing the Salem Waterfront Hotel. The hotel has the pub as a restaurant and a banquet business and function business, and to the extent that it has that business, it would be greatly affected by this tax as well. And on behalf of the hotel, we oppose the tax.
Thank you.
My name is Dirk Isbrants, and I own Cap's Waterfront Grill on Pickering Wharf. And there's 2 points that I'd like to make. One is I'd like to thank the council for linking these 2 conversations, because they're linked economically. If there's not a single rooms customer that comes into Salem who doesn't spend money on food and beverage, whether it's in that hotel's restaurant or another restaurant. So they're linked, and they have to be thought of in that way. I think that's, even though the laws may be, but the ordinances might be different. And the other thing I'd like to make a comment on is that all taxes and all increase in fees can be kind of characterized as 75 cents on a single $100 purchase. And I think nobody's going to argue that that kind of relationship is minuscule in terms of the decision-making of a customer. But when you start to attract people who are coming to a destination for a period of time, there's multiple nights worth of rooms purchased, multiple meals for multiple family members. And so any basic economic analysis of this is based on the aggregate impact of a tax increase or a price increase or a fee increase, not on an individual purchase. People don't make their decisions that way, but they do sit around the kitchen table thinking about where they want to go. And if you take away a competitive advantage for one particular municipality, it strengthens the competitive advantage of another municipality or another state. So the things that I would just ask you to think about as you're contemplating what the right decision is to understand that these things are linked. And when somebody walks into my restaurant, they very frequently have a bag from a purchase that they made at another store. So again, it isn't just hotel to restaurant, it's restaurant as an attraction to a locality, and then purchases that are made because people came into that locality to begin with. So it's the aggregate impact of purchases and the aggregate population and the general decisions that people make as they think about where they're going to go to spend their money. I think it's very important to think in those terms. And as convenient as that kind of analysis is, where you talk about 75 cents on the dollar, it's really not an accurate reflection of the way people think or the way that kind of combined purchase decisions are made.
Yes. Thank you. Councilor Roman.
Through you. Just from an economic point of view, Dave McKillop from Rockefellers talked about that he lowered his prices.
Hold on, 1 second. Sorry. Gotta change the tape. We haven't reached the 21st century yet. There you go. There's no money for something like that, but here we go.
Prices of this, he said, the typical menu item would have It's gone down from $40 down to about $31. We heard the same thing from Finn's. The reason why, and you probably have done the same at CAPS, I think that the economic term is you run into diminishing returns. You can increase the amount that you charge for a meal, but ultimately people buy less meals. So when all is said and done, at the end of the day, restaurateurs make less money, even though you're charging more for a particular menu item. I think that's what you're getting at here. You can raise the tax. You can just continue to raise the tax. But when all's said and done, you have to look at the aggregate amount that the city derives from that tax. And at some point in time, you raise the price too high, you actually get less money total. Isn't that what you're doing?
Yeah, I think I doubt that any one of us as restaurant owners, and I know that's probably true for hotel operators, have raised our prices at all. What we've tried to do is find ways to make our restaurants or our businesses more attractive to people and to create better value so that they would choose to come to our restaurant either through improved flavor or presentation or putting less expensive items on a menu. So none of us have experienced any aggregate increase in the average check. And most of us have realized quite some time ago that the economic conditions were such that raising prices as a way of raising income was absolutely out of the question. We had to find different ways, either to become more efficient or to attract customers to our venue. So it's very true, and I think you have the same challenge. I mean, it's really, really difficult to be a mayor. I'm not sure I would want to trade places. Okay? So you have a really, really difficult challenge, and you have equally ones because you have to weigh many competing interests. But this is a very, very difficult economic climate, and anything that you do to reduce our competitive advantage. And Salem is a great place. I don't live in Salem. I am thrilled to have my business located in this city. And from the day that we did construction all the way through, I think the climate has been balanced and fair and given us an opportunity to be successful. And I don't begrudge any taxes that we pay at all. But I do think you have to understand that the impact of this in terms of reducing bodies into our locality to spend money throughout Salem is going to be fairly significant.
Appreciate it, thank you. Anyone else on the right? Anyone on the left?
Again, Pat Liberty, 3 Lions Lane, Salem, Mass. 75 cents, I know they're talking about $2, but we're looking only at the 75 cents and the impact it has on the city. And for us to meet our costs, I know it's a hard decision. But in all honesty, if I'm going out to dinner, I know I'm going to spend X amount of money, and 75 cents on $100 to me is tiny compared to an increase in my property tax, whether it be 1% or 2%. And I think that's what you have to look at, is the impact it has on the citizens. The people that go out to dinner can afford it, and an extra 75 cents, I don't know if it's going to make that much difference in them staying home. But it does make a big difference when you're going to have to increase my property taxes, because you're talking about something that's more expensive, and a 1% is a big increase. So I really think it's time to think about the citizens of Salem. And I know the businesses are important, but the citizens of Salem are just as important, and that's what we have to look at. And our voices have to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Going once, going twice. Motions? Councilor O'Keefe.
I move that the committee of the whole recommend the entire city council that the city of Salem accept Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 64G, Section 3A, to impose a local room occupancy excise tax at the rate of 6%. Period. That's what's before us. Move the hearing be closed.
Thank you. Councilor O'Keefe moves that the public hearing be closed. All those in favor? All opposed? Public hearing is now closed. Councilor O'Keefe.
I move that the committee on the whole recommend to the city council that the city of Salem accepts Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 64G, Section 3A, to impose a local room occupancy excise at the rate of 6%. That's what's before us, 660.
I'm sorry, I have to write, I know what it is.
I know.
I have to write, it's kind of difficult. Under discussion? Councilor Sosnowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President.
Seconded.
Is there a second on the floor?
First of all, I'll second that.
Second, seconded by Councilor Fury, thank you.
But under
Councilor
discussion?
Sosnowski. Under discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This indeed is definitely a difficult decision here. But as we have talked about splitting this apart, I think Councilor Roning and myself are kind of on the same page here. Diminished returns. I've talked with some of the hotel managers that say that they daily get calls from people that are doing tours, tour operators. And yes, indeed, we're competing with Portland, Portsmouth, and quite a few other surrounding communities. Their rationale in thinking about why we should oppose this is, let's just take some round numbers. If in a course of a year they rented 10,000 rooms, each room was $100 per night. That'd be $1 million. At 10%, just taking the 9.7 that it currently is and rounding it up to 10, that'd be $100,000 in revenues. However, if we go to 12%, which would be the 11.7, again rounded up, but they were to lose business, and instead of having 10,000 rooms rented per year, we only rented 8,000 rooms per year. Again, at $100 per room. That would be $800,000, but times 12%, we would only have $96,000 returned. We would actually have less money. And it would be further complicated by the fact that the people that get in these rooms, after they get in the rooms, they don't stay there. They walk downstairs and they go to they buy the baubles, they buy the trinkets, they buy the t-shirts, they buy the food, they buy the restaurants. But if they don't come to these rooms, it's the reverse of an economic engine. I'm very concerned about that. I'm almost hoping all the other surrounding communities do adopt this so that everybody will refuse to go there and come here. There's a lot to say here relative to this. The business, okay, I don't want to get into the food side of this, but I do want to talk about residential tax rates versus the business tax rate. And every year we struggle with this issue. And I'll be talking on the food part in the second part of this conversation when we get to that. My concern here on the room side is we need to be definitely aware of what the trickle effect is here, or the ripple effect, or trickle down, however you want to talk to it. I've already made my mind up how I'm going to be voting on this, and I will not be in supporting of the rooms tax, the room occupancy tax. It has an awful lot to do with how the total business climate is, and we need to be considerate of that. Is it a small thing? Yes, it is a small thing. I have to also, in the same breath, absolutely compliment the mayor and the staff. We have an incredible downtown. It's an incredible, vibrant place. And it's the one thing we've got going for us. When everything else isn't well in the country, we have something that's going well. Are the returns diminished? Yes. Would increased taxes make it even worse? Absolutely. But even in a diminished sense, we're still better off than a lot of surrounding communities, and I think we should be very, very happy with what we have. And again, I'm very happy with what the mayor has done here. It's been not a difficult, not an easy road to hoe, and boy, we understand that completely. All right? My hat's off to you. Thank you. You do a good job. That doesn't mean that I changed my opinion on this, because my rationale behind how I think it would all unfold, still, I believe that to be true. And in my heart, that's how I'm going to feel, that's how I'm going to vote. Thank you, Mr. President.
Council Ronan.
I can't think of a more unfair tax than the hotel tax, because it's really levied on two particular properties. We only have two big hotels, the Hawthorne Hotel and the Salem Harbor Hotel. So they would be bearing the burden of this tax. I want to point this out to you. The tax on the hotel, and I'm referring now to the woman who spoke earlier.
Comments through the chair, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The total tax on the hotel is supposed to only generate $150,000 per year. So about 80% of that would be paid by the Hawthorne Hotel or the Salem Waterfront Hotel. That's $150,000 per year on a $123 million budget. So it's a very small percent. It's not going to give you any tax relief, and that's why I had asked the mayor that specific question. Now, Salem's hotels don't compete with Beverly's hotels or Danvers' hotels. We compete with Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and we compete with Portland, Maine. In the presentation that the mayor gave with respect to their hospitality taxes, you'll see we already pay more. In New Hampshire right now, their hospitality tax total is 9%. In Maine, their total is 8.5%. We tax our hotels now in Salem 9.7%. That is, there's a state tax that's imposed at 5.7%, and already the city of Salem taxes those hotels 4%, making the total tax 9.7%. That's important because Salem doesn't compete with Beverly, Danvers, and those local communities. We compete with these boutique towns like Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and Portland, Maine. I've spoken with all of the hotels in Salem. The business that we really cater to isn't just this tourist business that come in October. That's not going to sustain a hotel like the Hawthorne Hotel or the Salem Waterfront Hotel. They're looking for convention business. And this is really what in Salem we want. And this is what I think my brother was trying to point out with the numbers. There is an economic term called diminishing returns. If we take in less people, we make less money, no matter whether or not we raise the tax rate. When businesses or conventions are booking their hotel rooms with the hotels, they want to know what the bottom line is. They don't really care, to know what the taxes are. But so when they come in and there's a big group and they look and they see the bottom line is going to be more in Salem, Massachusetts than it is in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, they'll go to Portsmouth, New Hampshire or Portland, Maine, because they're charging less. What we want to do is we want to give Salem an economic advantage on everyone else. Because Beverly may be considering this local tax or Danvers is considering this local tax, is a reason for us not to impose it. Give Salem's businesses every advantage that we can so that the business comes to Salem and stays in Salem. That'd be my position on this.
Councilor Ryan, then Councilor Fury.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Like this tax makes me keep thinking about like what's the straw that's going to break the horse's back. I mean, keep taxing, but I mean we're not in a good situation. I mean, like the smoking ban, it was put in by city, and there was a disadvantage to the cities that got it first because the people just went to other places, which Councilor Ronan basically might happen if we increase the tax, we'll go to other hotels. But with the economic storm that's here and getting worse, we're not going to be able to, we're going to have a choice. So if we don't vote for it now down the road, we're going to have to vote for it. We're going to have no choice. And I just keep going back to the state. I mean, that plug to go into the bucket filled with water, and plug being, they need to give us tools, they need to fix the pension reform, and they need to fix healthcare. Those two costs are killing us that we have no control over. And until that gets fixed, we can keep dumping more water and water. Eventually, we're gonna run out of water. There's gonna be no more water to fill this bucket up anymore. And we're gonna be in trouble. But we need to vote on this. I mean, I wanna see a vote tomorrow at the next meeting unless there's other issues, either way.
Thank you. Council Fury.
Clearly, the argument should not be Salem resident versus a hotel guest or a tourist coming in to eat or buy in Salem. They are all equal in the city of Salem. Once they set foot in the city of Salem, they should be given the rights and responsibilities of being equal, whether it's public safety, on education, or services, a cobblestone, or a pothole. Everyone in the city of Salem deserves a good city to live in, a vibrant city to live in. If we don't do it now, if we don't get this revenue stream here, where else do we get it? Where do we cut in the future, 6 months down from the line? This is the time to do it. We're only getting a small stream of money for this last quarter of the year, a certain amount of money. If we're not going to go for this revenue, I'm asking those who people are going to oppose tonight, this revenue source, come up with something. Sincerely, that's what the national argument about Senator Brown is coming about. Oh, we can't have new taxes and so on. Well, where are they going to come from? And I think the people who are going to vote against this measure should speak up and say, hey, we're going to cut here. We're going to cut so many places, and fire and teachers and aides, libraries and services, because those will be cut somewhere along the line. This is a one-source income that will affect everybody. And everybody in this city is going to be affected. The tourist should not be punished. The restaurant person shouldn't be punished. Everybody's going to be a win-win situation in this. We're all going to gain by a small revenue stream. If we don't vote on this revenue stream tonight, then we will be cutting somewhere along the line, 6 months down the line. This is the best possible solution in a very difficult situation. To vote against it is you have to come up with the responsibility saying, I think we're going to do something 2 months from now, we're going to cut teachers. Because that's what we're going to do. Sincerely. Where else are we going to get the money? We want to fix certain things and do certain things, as we're recommended, as even council keeps, let's decrease the fees for students. My son is one of those students that got one of those big hit fees. Where are we going to get the money? Those people who are opposed to this should come up with a stream of revenue. Thank you.
Councilor Privy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to be voting against this. I agree with some of the comments that Councilor Rona and Councilor Sosnowski made, some of the points I believed in right along, that I think the revenue that we would generate as a result of having this tax for the hotel motel, I think the benefit for that just does not outweigh the impact, the negative impact that it would have on hotels and motels. We obviously heard testimony that, there is a negative impact, they have to compete, and we should be supportive. We only have 2 hotels in the city, and we should be doing what we can to make them more competitive, if anything, especially since we are not, we call ourselves a restaurant destination, which we are, but we're not a hotel destination. And I think we have to guard our hotels very jealously and do what we can to support them. And by imposing this local tax, I don't think that helps to support them. I think it adds an additional burden that they have to struggle with all the other economic considerations that they have to go through. And like I said, the financial benefit the city would gain in comparison or in the context of the entire city budget, I think does not outweigh our need to support our hotels in this instance. So I will be voting against him. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Privy. Councilor Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is tough, no doubt about it. We'll be sitting here in budget meetings next few months. And like Councilor Fury said, we're going to have to cut. We're going to have to come up with something. It's just, I don't think there could be a worse time for something like this. I don't think anyone likes taxes. It's death and taxes. I don't think anybody likes taxes. I will not be supporting this, and I won't be supporting it because I feel that the burden that the hotels and the restaurants, which we'll get into after, it's just overbearing. I think times are so tough and bad, and people are tapped out, that any disadvantage we give to a consumer, to someone that's going to spend money, is going to work against us. If we don't let our hotels stay competitive and compete, then they're going to lose. I just think that the economy, the way it is now, and the timing is just not good. I can't support it. I know come budget time, we're going to have to tighten our belts. We're going to have to do something. I think people are tired of being taxed, tired of us finding ways. I mean, people are paying more for gasoline, people are paying more for food, we've increased parking meters, we've done everything we can do, and I know there's only so much we can do. The mayor and the administration has done a great job. There's only so much we can do. I just think that we have to sit down at budget time, and I'm going to try to come up with something, like Councilor Fury said, I'll challenge myself to try to come up with something where we can cut. Will I come up with something that'll make up for what we're going to lose in this? Maybe not, but I'm going to make a concerted effort to try to find something in the budget that we can cut, because I think that'll send a message to the people that, hey, we're trying, we got to go forward, we got to do something. I mean, I've never seen it, I don't think I've ever seen it this bad as long as I've been alive as far as an economy. I didn't live through a depression. I'm not that old, maybe Councilor O'Keefe did. But anyway, Mr. President, I will not be supporting it for that, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Councilor Ronan, one last time.
Yeah, just in follow-up, through you, my colleague asked, well, where will we get the money? As I said, this is a $150,000 projection if everything went the way it is now. There is no guarantee that there will be any money. We may increase this tax, the tax rate, and find out that the aggregate amount that we recovered is actually less than it was when the tax rate was lower. That is because we could lose business to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, or Portland, Maine. The other thing to consider is the Waterfront Hotel, brand new hotel down there, and they've done a good job with the wharf. They're talking about an addition. They wanted to put an addition on down at the to their hotel down at the wharf. Well, how would this increase in tax affect that development? If it affects it at all, there'll be a net loss, not an increase. There won't be any money. I want you to know that this tax not only affects the hotels, but it affects a very small number of bed and breakfasts. It affects only the bed and breakfasts with 4 or more rooms. The Coach House Inn in my ward is one of those bed and breakfasts. When the initial tax was imposed on hotels, we had far more bed and breakfasts in Salem than we have today. 6 of the bed and breakfasts dropped off the commercial tax rolls because they rolled back the amount of rooms they rent to 3. When they do that, then their property no longer is taxed at the commercial rate. It's taxed at the residential rate. So if we were to lose some of those bed and breakfasts because they drop down to 3 or less rooms, again, there's a loss, a total loss in the revenue. But to answer the question, I've been on this council now only a brief period of time. Where would we get the money? I've had some ideas, and I've had some discussions with the mayor. One idea is the meters in Salem don't increase in October. We don't increase the rate of the meters in October. So if we were to increase the rate of the meters in October, we'd make up for this $150,000 that, you're going to put 80% on the back of these 2 hotels and the rest on the bed and breakfast in Salem. So there are solutions. We'll have to be clever, and we'll have to cut costs. My wife, now ex-wife, had a solution to everything. When we talk about the family budget, her idea was always, you have to make more money. Well, that's one solution, and that's the solution that that the administration has asked us for here. Try to increase the revenue. But the more practical solution is get a grip on the budget and make more tough decisions, cut where we have to.
Mr. Chairman.
You all set, Councilor Rowan?
Yes.
Councilor O'Keefe?
I agree with Councilor Warner. We should have additional sources of income. And we heard Mr. Parrish talk about, he called it a tax, entertainment tax. Well, we should go back, and I've discussed this with the mayor before, that we should resurrect the entertainment fee. That everybody that goes in the Salem Museum, and it would be a percentage of the admission price, and the last time we looked at it, it would have been 15 cents for everyone that went in the museum down on the Common. If we charged 3% for the admission price, it would be 18 cents. So yes, we should do that in October. Entertainment fee, not a tax. Look at all the people that come here. If we get 15 cents for everybody that comes here in October, we could close the budget gap in a year. But the council is right about this occupancy rate. But when we start comparing ourselves with Beverly as far as hotels, I don't know of a hotel in Beverly. I know of inns, motels, but I don't know of a hotel. We have to have a fire department and a police department based upon the occupancy of the city. We're a city of 7.5 square miles. Beverly is closer to 15. Look at the size of Danvers. I mean, they probably roll in with 3 people on a fire truck up there. We roll in with about 8 because of the 7-story or 6-story at the hotel. When I was a boy, there were 2 aerial ladder trucks in this city. 2. We have 1 today. 1 aerial ladder truck. We have 2. We needed them because of the buildings and the size of the buildings and the Hotel Hawthorne. Now we have 1. So what are we going to do? We have less firefighters. We have less police officers. How are we going to address it? I think we should start with what is called local room occupancy excise. Start there and work from there. Let it share equally. Move the question and let someone else, oh, I'm sorry, withdraw my motion.
Councilor Lovely.
Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, I'd like to offer an amendment that we increase the hotel motel tax by 1% and not max it at 2%. And I think there's been a lot of convincing argument why not to increase it at all, and I completely understand that. I'm looking at it from the standpoint that it is mostly a tourist-based business. If people are coming in, whether it's a corporate client or just a tourist that comes in, and therefore a Salem resident most likely does not have to pay that tax, which is who I'm particularly trying to protect here. So I'd like to, and so these people coming in from out of town do use our services, and I think imposing a 1% fee would be more fair than a 2% fee, although I don't like any of the fee, but I want to offer the amendment of a 1% fee over the 2%.
Mr. Chairman, you ask me if I can accept that amendment?
I'm offering that as an amendment.
You offering it as an amendment?
If you would
I
accept
don't
it
accept, I would.
That's fine. You don't have to. It's up to the council.
How about a compromise, Mr. Chairman?
That is the compromise.
Oh, no, another compromise. How about 1.5? So I can win a couple of votes here.
I'm
right.
I'm not going to go down the road of being...
All right, we'll start at 2 then.
Thank you. Any further discussion on Councilor Lovely's...
Well, I had further discussion.
Any further discussion, period? We'll just go with that. Councilor Sergeant?
Well, I just had a comment on all that's going on here. I mean, these are easy decisions. I had always felt, especially with the meals tax, that the state should share some of that with us. I didn't expect the state to take some more and then ask us to add it on to it. I always felt that we created the circumstances, the economic circumstances for a lot of these restaurants to thrive, and some towns don't have many at all. And I always felt if they were going to act like a business and we generated that money for the state, any business would be willing to share part of that. I just didn't expect them to do it this way. So, you know, it's a tough decision, but I most likely will support these when we vote on them. And as far as bringing up other means to make revenue, the ticket tax, we have to put that on the table. That, to me, if we take 1 million tourists in a year, that would generate at least $1 for every tourist. Through the museums they go to, probably 90% not Salem residents. And That's something we have to look at as a means, as with these taxes, of diversifying the way we get our revenue. If we don't support this, my fear is that less people own homes than go out to eat, and that this money we need will be passed on to the homeowners, and it'll be a larger percentage than they would be paying by going out to eat. So, with the ticket tax, we have to have a slow, easy discussion on it that will incorporate the departments and the tourism industry itself, so we don't push this at somebody so hard that it won't be accepted. But I think if we do it the right way, we can get it to be accepted in the city. And I just strongly feel that the history of the city is a marketable commodity that's owned by the people of the city. And it's not unfair for those people to say, we expect a royalty from people who are making money off that history to help, if not offset our property taxes, to make the increases smaller as time goes on. And so that's another way to generate some revenue. And the tourist tickets are not currently taxed. So I don't think it's unfair to ask for a little bit from that, if we're gonna ask for increases from the ones that are already being taxed. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? There's a motion on the floor by Councilor O'Keefe, seconded by Councilor.
Take it up.
Take up the amendment first.
There's a motion on the floor, Councilor's amendment to amend the, what's in front of us to a 1% increase as opposed to a 2% increase. Any further discussion on that?
Roll call, Mr. President.
Roll call.
Was the motion seconded? Someone second the motion?
Did anybody second the motion of Councilor Lovely?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Fury. Councilor Preview, I'm sorry. Hold on, just 1 second, I have to find these slips. I'll do it on this. I have it. If everyone could just bear with me 1 second. I have to do this.
Do you want to use?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have to do this alphabetically in reverse,
Use.
which is a chore in itself.
Yeah.
Just give me 1 second.
Yeah, Deb, change to 1%.
Let's see, it goes back. Pass this up to him. So who's first?
Fury.
Fury, thank you. Each year. Happens in Harry Fury.
1% my amendment.
Yeah, I know, yes, I am at the bottom, thank you. Cheryl, if you're watching, I'm sorry. didn't have one of those slips. On Counselor Lovely's amendment to the motion that the increase go from 2% to actually 1%. We're gonna move it with Counselor Fury.
No.
Counselor Lovely.
Yes.
Counselor O'Keefe.
No. No.
Counselor Pinto.
No.
Counselor Prevey.
Yes.
Counselor Pelletier is not absent. Sorry. Counselor Ronan.
No.
Counselor Ryan.
No.
Counselor Sergeant.
No.
Counselor Sosnowski.
No.
Counselor McCarthy. I would be a yes on that one if I had a choice. I will. There are 10 members present, 1 absent. The vote is 7 nays and 3 in the affirmative. The matter does not carry.
Move for reconsideration. I hope it will not prevail.
Counselor O'Keefe moves for immediate reconsideration and hopes it will not prevail. All's in favor? All's
Favor.
opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed, have it. On
Move for my,
Counselor,
move for my mention, motion, original motion.
Counselor O'Keefe's original motion to refer this matter at 2% out of committee,
No, excise rate of 6%.
the 2% increase to a
Yeah,
total
well,
of 6%.
that's what the order says, 6%.
I realize that.
All right.
Thank you.
660.
Council Order 660. Thank you.
660. 6%.
Yes. Thank you. Councilor Fury.
Yes.
Councilor Lovely.
No.
Councilor O'Keefe.
Yes.
Councilor Pinto.
No.
Councilor Prevey.
No.
Councilor Pelletier, absent. Councilor Ronan.
No.
Councilor Ryan.
Yes.
Councilor Sergeant.
Yes.
Councilor Sosnowski.
No.
Councilor McCarthy. Yes. Matter is a tie, 5-5. The matter will be referred out of committee with no recommendation.
Move that the,
Well, but it's in,
I would make a motion that the matter be referred to the Committee on Administration and Finance.
under discussion, right now, the matter is in front of the committee of the whole. So it can stay, if it gets referred to finance, then that matter would only be, could only be discussed amongst the finance committee. So I'll leave that,
Co-posted with the Committee of the Whole?
That's what this is.
that's what this is. This is the committee of the whole, it's the same thing. The only difference would be that Council Prevey would be sitting here and I'd be sitting over there. Is my correct in that interpretation?
And only the committee members could cast a vote.
Fine.
yeah,
Correct. In that case, only the committee members can cast a vote, so.
I want to do that.
Right now, we have the matter is deadlocked at 5 apiece. So, I would think that under the rules, that this would be come out in tomorrow's meeting at,
No, somebody has to make a motion to that.
okay, like, there's a,
What was that?
The matter's failed to be reported out with a positive recommendation, so someone has to make a motion for it to be reported out with no recommendation.
okay?
Okay.
Is that under discussion? Councilor Ron.
Yep. My motion was that this matter be referred to the Committee on Administration and Finance, co-posted with the Administration of the Whole. There's a lot of numbers and economics, that we can discuss here that I think would be appropriate before the Commission on Administration and Finance. That's why I made that motion. I don't think that this is something that we have to hastily just put before the whole committee for a vote tomorrow night.
Under discussion, Councilor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. President. That's what this minute, it says right here, Administration of Finance co-posted with the Committee of Whole. That's what this whole meeting's about right now. We're gonna do the same thing again?
Through you,
That's not what this is. This is a,
It says it right here?
if that were the case, then only the Committee on Administration and Finance would have been able to vote on this matter. This is a meeting of the Committee of the Whole.
Yeah.
For clarification, this is a public hearing. The matter was originally
Referred from the committee.
referred to the Committee on Administration and Finance, co-opposed with the Committee of the Whole. The administration, a joint meeting, a Committee of the Whole meeting in which this matter was taken up, was then referred to a public hearing, and that's where we are now. So it's in front of the Committee of the Whole, public hearing is where we stood right now.
So-
Further discussion.
How do you rule, Mr. President, so we're clear on the matter?
Well, there's a motion on the floor. Well, I with all due respect to, I mean, I'll open it up for more discussion.
No, no,
With
no.
all due respect to Councilor Ronan, I mean, right now, it is still in committee. I mean, to refer it to another committee co-posted with the Committee of the Whole would, I mean, it can stay in the Committee of the Whole, or it can get referred out with, at this point, no recommendation.
Yeah, that's our understanding?
But I can't do that. Someone else would have to.
I so move.
What would you so
Refer
move?
to the council tomorrow's meeting with no recommendation.
I think
That's
this-
Council Order 660.
Mr. Commissioner, I believe there's a motion before the floor now.
There's a motion, you're actually right, it was up under discussion. There's a motion on the floor by Councilor Ronan to refer this to the Committee on Administration and Finance, co-posted with the Committee of the Whole. All those in favor?
Discussion.
Further discussion, hold on, further discussion, Councilor Fury.
Mr. President, I think it would be best interest to refer to tomorrow night's meeting, maybe with the 11th meeting, Councilor Pelletier not being here, that if all of us are here, 11 of us, it's a timely issue. I think the vote should be up and down. It shouldn't be referred back to committee. I think the votes are, it's going to be a close vote tomorrow, situation in the, tomorrow night, and I think that it should be voted out tomorrow night with the full city council. Timely matter.
Further discussion. Councilor Privy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I have a question for my colleague, Councilor Ronan. And the question is, what would the plan be if it goes back to Committee on Administration and Finance, co-posted with the Committee of the Whole? What can we do there that the committee currently, that this matter is in front of now, could not do and address?
What would the Committee on Administration and Finance be
Yes.
able to do?
What would we do in Committee on Administration and Finance that would be different from what we are able to do right now with this matter being in Committee of the Whole?
Well, I think we'd be able to discuss the numbers in a little bit more detail.
Numbers with respect to what?
With respect to the Department of Revenue estimates, with respect to the actual revenue figures that we derive currently now from the taxes, and what would happen if, for instance, some of the bed and breakfast dropped off the residential tax roll, the commercial tax roll, and were taxed at a residential rate. To be able to see, what we're talking about in terms of whether or not there is any real money, to be made by imposing this 2% tax, or, exactly how the numbers play out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Motion on the floor by Councilor Ronan to refer this to the Finance Committee, co-posted with Committee of the Whole. All those in favor? All those opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed, have it. Further motions? I believe the fact that the matter is 5-5, that it was, correct me if I'm wrong, I will state this and I'll allow one of my colleagues to interject, is, as it currently stands, there are 10 members voting, it's 5-5. The matter was asked to be referred out of committee with a positive recommendation. Right now, it stands 5-5, so there is no action taken by the committee, so therefore, it would be my assumption that this matter would be referred to, well, that's up to the committee. It could come out.
It needs a motion.
Someone has to make that motion. I can't do that.
Right.
But it's right now, we're just gonna keep batting this around until someone makes a motion. Councilor Ryan.
I make a motion that we refer it out of committee with no recommendation.
Councilor Ryan's, the second?
Second.
Councilor Ryan's recommendation, that's be referred out of committee with no recommendation. All those in favor? All those opposed? It's referred out of committee with no recommendation. if I could have just 1 minute to try to put all this on paper, because it's very difficult to do this in, just give me 1 second.
Thank you. Want to recess, Mr. President? Wouldn't that be better? No?
If someone wants to make that motion.
Well, a 3-minute recess?
Councilor O'Keefe's motion for a 3-minute recess. All- We have for taking a roll call vote on something like that, which was requested, so I apologize for that. I just want to make sure that we get this right, and so I don't have to be on the phone with Cheryl for an hour tomorrow, making sure that she understands what went on. And I appreciate everyone's indulgence on that, with allowing me to do that. Thank you. Right now, we're going to take up the second matter that's in front of us, which is a increase in the local option for the meals tax by 0.75%.
President?
Councilor O'Keefe.
I move that the Council Committee of the Whole recommend to the City Council that the City of Salem accept Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 64L, Section 2, parenthesis A, to impose a local meals excise tax of 0.75%. Council Order 659.
I second the motion.
0.75%.
Correct. On Councilor O'Keefe's motion that we accept the 0.75% increase, seconded by Councilor Fury.
Under discussion.
Under discussion. Councilor Sosnowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is an incredibly difficult one as well. As a matter of fact, it represents a lot more money. I actually went home to my wife and I said to my wife, I said, okay, if 75 cents, if we're going to go out to eat, is 75 cents going to stop you? Or going to stop us? And of course the answer came back, of course not. It's not going to stop us. We're going to spend $100 for the two of us to go out to eat, and 75 cents is certainly not going to stop us. However, understand something, and it was said fairly well. I don't go out as often as I used to because I'm hurting. And I think I'm representative of most of the people of Salem. Everybody is hurting. So inasmuch as 75 cents, excuse me, on a $100 bill certainly has no influence on my going out, that's a consideration. I just go out less, all right? And quite honestly, we always try to patronize all the Salem businesses. To make sure that I was doing this right, and I wanted to get outside of the influence of all of these calls and letters we were getting, Monday night, I actually went over to Beverly's, City Council's meeting. And I went there and I saw Mayor Scanlon make his presentation. Shortly after the presentation, Councilor Pinto and Councilor Previous showed up. And I understand that, Mr. President, you showed up just outside the door when one of the people commenting was lambasting the council president and the whole council for mismanaging the entire Beverly budget. It was interesting to know that...
It wasn't a good time to walk in.
It was not a good time for you to appear there, no. So I think you left at that point. But it was interesting to get a completely different point of view, to see what was going on. And the odd part is, it wasn't different. It was the same concerns. And it was, and the end result is exactly what just happened here earlier. They had a split council. They actually tied. One of the councilors had to recuse himself because he was the owner of a sub shop over there in Beverly. All right. It was very interesting in how that was going. Relative to this meals tax, I'm listening very, 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 very astutely to what all the major business owners here are saying. I've listened to that a lot. We approve a budget by June 30th. By the end of, or sometime in early December, we set a tax rate. And we always struggle to appease Councilor O'Keefe is always saying, let's try to change it and put more burden on the businesses than on the homeowner. Well, I understand that concept, and I don't disagree with that concept, except for one thing. I will never, ever try, at least knowingly, increase the rate on the homeowner. However, I always try to hold the rate to be the same, because I think our businesses, I know our businesses are struggling. And toward that end, what most residential tax rate payers don't understand is, if we hurt the business base by shifting the tax burden over, the first year it's going to be wonderful. They'll have a lesser burden, and the businesses will have a higher burden. The second year, when some of those businesses have now gone out of business, things start to reverse. And so even though people may not understand what we've been doing by holding the rate, it's actually protecting the residents. That has been my rationale all along. All right? Most people don't understand that. The business climate, again, is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I am very concerned when I hear people like George Carey talk about how he's down 9%. He has to lower the prices, and again, it's interesting to note that most of his customers are local, that he's even gotten to the point where he can identify so many percentage from here, so many percentage from there. I've talked to another person who happens to be a friend of mine who actually has a canteen truck, and she is to the point of going out of business. She's on that borderline, and any additional cost to her would put her out. She cannot raise her rates to compensate with the additional prices. And if she absorbs those rates, it's just more money that she's losing. And she's already right on that borderline of making it or not making it. Again, this is one of these things that it's not a terrible large tax, but what it really is, it's like jumping into a pool of piranhas. One bite isn't going to hurt you, but the 20,000 other bites, by the time they're done, you're literally dead meat in the water. All right, so I am again, at this point, my belief is I am not going to be voting for this either. All right, and that's the sad part, because I'm definitely not unsympathetic to where we are in the bigger picture when we have to start going through the budget crunch. I mean, I understand that, and it's just so much easier. Relative to raising more monies, let's put a toll booth on the bridge, right? Let's put one on Bridge Street or something, all right? Boy, I'll tell you, I wish we could do things like that. That'd be great. Right? But we can't, of course. But there are other ways of doing it. One of the things that's awfully controversial, and it was actually mentioned in the presentation here, was a lot of the what was it referred to? The union contracts were coming up. I forget how they referred that. All right? Most of them are going to be expiring this year and need to be renegotiated. Well, personally, I'm like everybody else. If I were working for the private sector, I work for myself, by the way. If I were working for the private sector, I would be looking forward to a raise. But in this day and age, people should be lucky that they have a job. And we should be saying no to the increases. And is it fun to sit here as a politician and say no to the unions? Of course not. All right? But at some point in time, we have to say, you have a job. Be thankful you have a job. You've got decent benefits. You've got longevity. If you ask for the increase, someone's going to pay. Someone's going to lose their job. That's the tough one that we need to do if we were to support the mayor in that position, which I would, by the way. And is that popular? Of course not. That's about the most dumb thing a politician could ever think about doing, going against the unions. But is that what's finally necessary? It's absolutely necessary. And talk about raising the money. $150,000 is a drop in the bucket as compared to what you'd save by not allowing the cost of living increase for just 1 year. For just 1 year. Now, as we've all known, there are costs that we've had Rich Visquet work tirelessly on trying to control the health care costs, which 12% projected increase or something like that. That's a killer. That's a budget buster, all right? We know that. all right? But I mean, these are not easy times, and these are tough times, and these are tough decisions. But increasing the rates and endangering businesses is not the way to do it. And I'm sorry, but again, I can't support this, so that's my position on that, and hopefully we'll survive this. Thank you.
Council Prevey, then Council Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too will not be supporting this. We heard testimony tonight, and I think it was put to us in very specific terms as to the impact on our restaurant community. We have people stand up and basically tell the story of this is not a story about having a $100 bill, going out to a restaurant and paying only 75 cents. It's about paying an additional $2 because of what the state does. It's also about the state expanding what it taxes now, and now it taxes liquor. And so restaurant owners have had to make a difficult choice. Either they absorb those costs or they pass them on to their customers. So one way or another, someone is paying. And whoever ends up paying, essentially, doesn't create a good economic situation. It's less money for restaurants to use to perhaps improve their businesses. It's less money for the customers who are going into these restaurants and patronizing them. So I think overall, this type of tax would just have a completely depressing impact on our restaurant community. And one of the points that Councilor Ronan made, I agree with, that we should be helping our restaurant community by making sure something like this is not imposed. And if other cities and towns around want to impose this, then we get to say, you know what, our restaurant community is vital to our survival, it's vital to the growth of our community, and we're not going to impose it because we understand the difficulties it creates financially for them, and we're trying to stimulate growth with them. We're trying to make sure that they survive in a tough economic downturn. So those are my thoughts on that. The other side of it is we're in a very difficult situation. The mayor is doing her level best to try to come up with various ways of trying to shore up the budget when everything else is kind of falling apart. And, all of us should be completely resentful. I know certainly Councilor Ryan has expressed that towards the state. The gang on Beacon Hill, in their infinite wisdom, has come up with this thing. And now they've stuck it to us once again. And now we're left holding the bag, trying to make these difficult decisions. And it's created difficulties within our own city, between residents and our business community. And it just isn't fair. And there's just no insight on Beacon Hill to do that. And I wish some of these folks would wake up and, as the suggestion was made, make some real reforms, as opposed to just coming up with these cockamamie things and dumping them on cities and towns for us to struggle and deal with. Because we're the ones that have to provide the city services. We're the ones that have to make the tough budget decisions. And they kind of go on their way and say, oh, well, that's the way it is, so tough. And then you got the governor standing up and, to paraphrase what Councilor Vino had testified to earlier, just basically lied to people about the situation. I mean, it's abhorrent. Those are my thoughts. I think imposing this now when restaurants are struggling and they're trying to get a foothold and they're trying to get in, I think is going to really have a negative impact long term. And though we may gain some revenue short term from it, I think going forward, imposing this, I think, is going to have a deleterious effect. So with that, I'll thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. After hearing from Mr. Carey and Mr. McGillip and Mr. Stern, I was opposed to this from the beginning. I just think that any time you have to tax and you can't tax fairly, you target, you pick certain businesses. Nobody likes tax, but picking businesses, picking hotels and motels and picking restaurants is not fair. It puts them at a disadvantage in an economy that's already killing them. I honestly hope we don't lose restaurants because of this. I go to restaurants on a Friday night, and like Mr. McGillip said, there's people in there. But there's not a lot of people spending money, and he knows, he's got it down pat, $31 compared to $45 from a couple of years ago. I don't see how we can impose this on these restaurants who are supposed to be, we're supposed to be the restaurant capital of the North Shore. We tout a vibrant downtown, and again, it's tough, we need money, but to impose it on these people, this is like biting the hand that feeds you. I could never support this. I could never support this because I know a lot of the people in the restaurant business, especially families that have been here for years, years and years and years, long before home rule petitions, long before we had to raise taxes, long before they had to pay taxes on liquor, and they live in the city. So they're affected. Not just the people that don't live here, but the people that work in the restaurants. And like the fella, Mr. McGillip said from Rockefellers, and what George Carey said from the credit cards, most of the people come from Salem. What's the average income in Salem? It's a lot less than in Marblehead, you know, it's a lot less than in Swampscott, but it's gonna cost everybody 2% more. You know, it's sad, and I don't mean to try to point fault. I know the mayor has a tough job, we all have a tough job. I am just, I could never support this. I just feel that when you tax across the board, you tax evenly. You don't pick and choose. The state got everybody for 1 1/4. Who are we, well, the state put us in this position, who are we to throw another 3/4% at them? And of course, it doesn't sound like much, but it adds up to 2% because it went up from 5 to 6 1/4 in the last 8 months. So, Mr. President, I will not be supporting this, and I will reiterate that come budget time, I think it's time for us to tighten our belts and make some cuts. And send a message to people that, you know, we just can't keep doing this. I mean, when's it going to stop? 3 years ago, it was the trash tax, and we're selling city property to balance budgets. When's it going to stop? It's one thing after another after another. And I know the mayor has done a great job. I don't envy what she has to do. She came into a mess, and it really hasn't stopped. It's been one thing after another. But that being said, I will vote against this, and I will also yield the floor, Mr. President. Thank you.
Councilor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Like I said before, no one likes new taxes, and it's not right the way the state did this to the cities and towns. And I totally agree with people who are against it. I mean, they have every right. I mean, but when I think about this, I think about we represent the citizens who vote us in, but we're in business with these businesses too, because we have to coexist, and we depend on them for our budget. But I think about like different situations. What if someone lives in Ward 6, where I grew up, on Woodside Street, which is on the far end of the city? What if because we didn't have the money, we had to close that fire station? Now someone's house burns down on Woodside Street, but we can go and say to them, well, we couldn't get there fast enough because the fire station on North Street was closed, but you can stay in the hotel for 2% less because we didn't raise that tax, and you can have a meal for less than 0.75%. I mean, that's what I look at, the services we're gonna lose. But they're right on the other side too, is we could tax it, and this could be the straw that breaks the horse's back. I mean, no one's gonna know until something happens, but I mean, that's the way I look at it, and I just wanted to get out on the floor so we can vote on it tomorrow.
Thank you. Councilor Lovely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to actually just talk a little bit about the health care and what's going on in the city with you know, how much the city has to pay for health care for all of its employees, and particularly about the 8 collective bargaining units. You know, the mayor gave us a presentation back at the beginning of February and said, you know, and let me preface this just quickly, because Councilor Vino had brought it up during his remarks that, you know, do we want to cut services? Do we want to lay off teachers or firefighters or police officers? No, we don't. We absolutely don't. But during the last round of contracts with the administration and the bargaining units, they all turned down increases in the health care and said, lay people off. That's what they said, lay them off. So that's the ranks within saying lay them off, and I find that to be, you know, troubling. But, you know, I actually took a look at my own health care plan, and my husband and I just got a notice in the mail effective February 1st, 2010, in the middle of the fiscal year. My health care is going up. It's going to go from a $250 deductible to $750 deductible. And my co-pays are going to go from for primary care physician, anywhere from $15 to $35 a visit, and for specialists, from $20 to $40 a visit. Any type of x-rays are going to go up to $100 a visit. These are all deductibles. And my prescription drug coverage is anywhere from $10 to $50 for copay, or up to $110 if it's covered. Then I took a look at what the most of the, as the mayor gave us, most of what our union employees pay for health care. And so primary care copay is $5, specialist is $5, ER is $25, my ER is $50. In fact, I just paid it the other day when I was in the hospital with my daughter who had that really bad stomach flu. And you know, they said to me, would you like to pay your copay right now? We'll take credit cards. And I took out my credit card and paid my copay. And here are prescription drugs anywhere from $5 to $25. Now, I know that the mayor, you know, if the mayor is able to get all 8 of the collective bargaining unions, you know, the schools and police and fire, and asks me, you know, to come up to what is, to be participating in what is happening in private industry. I think private industry is actually even paying more than that. It would save the city over $800,000 a year. $802,495 in premium cost for FY10. And it's going to actually save money for these employees. They're going to pay less in premiums. And I find it troubling that these 8 units, collective bargaining units, aren't willing to come to the plate and mirror, or even come and kind of mirror what's happening in private industry, as far as, because private industry, you, me, and anybody who lives here are paying for this, you know, through our taxes. I know there's legislation up at the State House to be able to take this out of collective bargaining units' hands, if you will, and give cities and towns the power to be able to say, look, you're going to have to pay more. I haven't had a $5 copay in I don't know how many years. It's been a long, long time. I just think that, you know, it's time, you know, I mean, you either want to step up to the plate and help, you know, only because it's just time to do it. Everybody else is doing it on the private side. It's just time for the public side to do it. I remember one of the first votes when the mayor came in as mayor 4 years ago was to increase retirees. We increased their health care costs. They didn't have a union to say no. And we went in and said, you know what, sorry, and we know you're retired, we know you're on fixed income, we're increasing your health care costs. What you're right, what you're going to be paying, right, your share. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. So I know that's fairly strong, and I know Councilor Sosnowski said, you know, gee, you don't want to take on unions. No, you're right. It's just time, though. So I'm hoping that when the contracts expire at the end of this fiscal year, and of course August, I think you said for teachers, that that they come to the table honestly, you know, and with good intentions, and don't say, you know what, don't touch our copays, don't touch our deductibles, we'll lay people off, because that's what was said. We'll lay them off. I find that troubling. So how can I, in good faith, vote to increase these taxes, to put more money into the general fund for no earmarks, but a variety of things that the mayor has outlined, all of which deserve, including police, including fire, including teachers. And I'm gonna, and we can't get the you know, hundreds and hundreds of employees to at least come up and say, you know what, I'm going to pay my fair share, because that's what the industry standard is. I've been doing really well with this for a really long time, and it's time for me to pay my fair share. And maybe that's really strong to say, but it's time, especially when you're going to say, lay people off. Well, you know what, come May when we get the budget, maybe that's what we'll have to do, is lay people off, because we haven't been able to get these unions to pay their fair share. So I just can't in good faith support this right now. I'm not gonna vote in favor of it. If it came back to me at, you know, at another time during the year, after we've received the budget, after we've had the opportunity to renegotiate, the mayor has with collective bargaining units, and to see, you know, what type of savings we have, $800,000. I mean, the combination of these two taxes is $900,000. If we could get, you know, employees to come to the plate and save us $800,000, we don't need to increase this tax. We don't need the taxes. That's the way I look at it. So I can't support it right now, you know, just for those reasons. And I'm hopeful that during the next few months, that by the end of the fiscal year, you know, once everyone's out of contract, that, you know, do the right thing. Or you're right, there will be layoffs. And it's only because they've said lay people off.
Councilor Fury.
Tonight, this particular small stream of revenue may be a positive catalyst for some of the things that were being discussed tonight. Tonight, we have the opportunity and the obligation to get a small stream of revenue by enacting this piece tonight, because negotiations can be tough, we all know. Budget hearings can be tough. If we set the tone now and we set a stream of revenue, even though the deck of cards, Council previously says it's unfair to the state, and we can point fingers anywhere and up where, but eventually the fingers point back to us. The four fingers come back to us, saying the responsibility is here to do the revenues and the sources of responsibilities that we have. This particular stream of revenue tonight is a level playing field, sincerely, it is. It's a level playing field for businesses, it's a level playing field for residential and tourist. Meals is what we all have. Whether we want to eat or will eat or have the means to eat, it's a level playing field with a small stream of revenue that the city can have an opportunity to use. So this is a small stream of revenue. Grab it as it is now. We only can get that small revenue for the last quarter of the year. We're not getting it even for now. February, March, April. We'll get this at the end. Act now. Before negotiations, before the budget process. And those are all negative processes. This can be positive, getting a small stream of revenue saying, we tried. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Rowan.
My problem with imposing a tax is that a tax never gets rescinded. So our sales tax has gone statewide in a year. It's gone from 5% to 6.25% now, and it'll go to 7% if we impose this tax. Salem will never rescind that tax. So you can just keep adding taxes on, but they never go away once you add them on. I like to look at it from a different point of view in terms of balancing the budget. I think you have to look at it from a cost perspective rather than a revenue point of view. We haven't even seen the 2011 budget yet. So we're asked to vote on this particular tax increase without seeing, one, where the money's going to go to, or two, whether or not, in fact, we need it. In the PowerPoint presentation, there are several things that are pointed out. The costs. We know that we're going to have to suffer some losses because of the state not picking up their portion of the Quinn bill. We know that healthcare costs are rising. Any arguments can be made for the reason why we need more money. The more difficult decision is going to be, where can we cut? Where can we save some money from our budget? We haven't even seen the 2011 budget, and yet we're talking about increasing this tax. And I think my original point was that's because it's easy to sell. It's more money. It's more money to the city. So you say it's more money to the city and go to everywhere. Joe O'Keefe's favorite cause, the firemen, the police department, education. I mean, we certainly need money. Do we need this money? I'm not sure. We've got $123 million. There may be places that we can cut that budget. What I do know is this: whether or not we vote for this bill, our property taxes are going to increase. You already voted an increase of 2.5% on the property on the overall property taxes. That's done.
So the property taxes are going up. If you don't vote for this bill, the property taxes are still going up. If you vote for this bill, the property taxes are still going up, exactly the same amount. So it isn't a matter where we're voting for this in lieu of, property taxes. It isn't though we're getting any real estate property tax relief for voting for this bill. This bill strictly is to raise revenue. And my problem with a bill like this is it never goes away. Once you impose that tax, you never go backwards. You never rescind that tax. So the consumer, when he goes to buy a meal, in the last year, he pays now 7% if you vote for this, whereas last year he only paid 5%. So we're just piling on. That's my particular problem with this. And it's being sold as everything to everyone, and it really won't be. Thank you.
Move the question.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, there's a motion on the floor by Councilor O'Keefe, seconded by Councilor Fury, to accept the meals tax option at 0.75%.
To recommend
Roll call vote.
acceptance. Roll call.
Roll call vote, show of 3 hands. Roll call vote. I'm ready this time. That's why I need that 2-minute recess. Councilor Fury.
Yes.
Councilor Lovely.
No.
Councilor O'Keefe.
Yes.
Councilor Pinto.
No.
Councilor Prevey.
No.
Councilor Pelletier is absent, and I still have him wrong in the alphabetical, but I'll fix that. Councilor Ronan.
No.
Councilor Ryan.
Yes.
Councilor Sargent.
Yes.
Councilor Sosnowski.
No.
And myself, as reluctant as I am to tax people, I just see the more benefit if we do this, just because of all the reasons that were stated on the yes side, and I'm gonna leave it at that. It's been a long night. I vote yes, which makes the matter as equal as before. 5 in the affirmative, with 10 members voting, 1 absent, 5 in the affirmative, 5 in the negative. The matter does not carry. Is there a motion on the floor?
Mr. President,
Councilor O'Keefe.
I move that this matter be referred to City Council tomorrow night's meeting with no recommendation.
Councilor O'Keefe moves that we refer this to the City Council with no recommendation. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All's in favor? All's opposed?
Opposed.
Mr. Chairman.
Matter carries. Councilor O'Keefe.
Move for adjournment.
Councilor O'Keefe's motion for adjournment. All's in favor? All's opposed? We stand adjourned.